Well, it should be ready to go. I don't know why it's not letting me start. Hang on. There we go. Hello, everyone. I'm joined today with Hugo Award nominated artist Kukuruyo. Kukuruyo created a lot of artwork relating to the GamerGate movement, including Vivian James related artwork. Kukuruyo also faced a censorship campaign, or what some people might call a censorship campaign against him in 2016 when he tried to host a GamerGate panel at CometCon in Spain. Some online activists tried to censor Kukuruyo's panel, and unfortunately, they were successful in pressuring the convention into canceling the event. Now, I should probably disclose before we begin, I probably donated to Kukuruyo at some point a small amount of money because I supported the artwork he was doing. Um, and I also was involved with a attempt to get people to boycott Comic Con until his panel was unbanned. So how are you doing today, Kukuruyo?
I'm doing okay.
Hey, all right. So I'll keep it pretty open-ended a little bit in the beginning. Tell me about your GamerGate experience.
Mm, in like how you mean?
Well, what made this something you were interested in? Why did you care about this?
Mm, well, I was in. I think I'm probably going to be a little different than other people because I really wasn't too much interested in the journaling side. Like by the time GamerGate started, I already didn't care about game journalists because I already considered them to be shit. So it wasn't exactly news for me. I kind of became more interested when all of the other stuff went in, like when started to say like gamers are sexist, racist, and all of that stuff. That's when I kind of went like that. This doesn't match what I have always seen about the geeks in general. And then I they started to put a lot of pressure on video game creators and artists to censor themselves and all that stuff. And that's when I kind of went in. I was interested.
So for you personally, GamerGate was more about censorship of artwork and censorship?
I think it was kind of about both things. I mean, for the people who put the main interest on the journaling side, I mean, that's perfectly okay. I mean, I think that's a big part of what GamerGate was. But for me, I didn't care too much about specifically that part. So for me, it was more about, yes, like the censorship and the artistic and game development stuff, all of that thing.
And you said that you didn't like that they were calling gamers sexist and racist and things like this. Are you referring to the Gamers Are Dead articles?
That was part of it, that they were doing that in the articles, but I think it was more than that. Like when people talk about how gamers started, we always refer to those articles, but it's not just that a few articles say that. It's that articles came in and a lot of people in the what at the time called like the social justice side started to say, "Oh, those articles are correct. Like gamers are all sexist, are all fascist, and all of that stuff." So it was like a big push from a certain side of the internet saying all those things.
All right. All right. So when did you get involved with the consumer revolt?
Mm, well, that was kind of an unorthodox way I got in because I kind of went in thanks to anti-gamergate. So the thing is to put in a little of context. Like at the time, but like the group of friends that I was in, a part of them were like very woke, and we didn't have those terms back then. We didn't even call them social justice warriors when I was friends with them. But they were the kind that you're always making comments about everything being sexist and whatever. And there was one guy, specifically, I knew that he was always virtue signaling a lot. He'd say, like, he often said comments like, he said that all gamers, except a few exceptions, are all fascist. Absolutely all gamers are fascist. And I saw him that he was making a comment saying that, or there's these gamers all sexist because they are not attacking this girl called Zoe Quinn, and she has done anything wrong. And I had no idea about that topic, but I knew that if that guy was saying that, it was false. It was all I knew. So I went in because he put a link to some Twitter thread or something, and I went in. I started to look through it, and this was it wasn't GamerGate yet. It was the conspiracy, but I think that it probably was or the day before or even the same day that the death of gamers. Gamers are death articles came in, and I was looking through all of the stuff, and I mean, at the beginning, I wasn't too much interested. I just wanted to check that this guy was wrong in what he said. But then when the articles came out, I was like, okay, this is kind of more serious.
Can you define what Gamergate was?
The hard question. Mm, well, I have found that, well, many of I have seen a few of the interviews, and I think many of the definitions that people have made are correct, but I tend to have a way to explain this to people now that is a little different that I did back then, because I think that now people have like more context of all of this, like the woke stuff, so to speak. So the way that I usually define Gamergate today is that we were people who we kind of predicted that there was a possibility that the state of culture and video games and entertainment will go down the route that it has gone today. And we kind of tried to prevent it, and we kind of tried to push back against this idea that gamers were sexist and racist and whatever, to kind of stop it from becoming something that everyone believed, and games to be worse than they were because they started to push for certain ideologies in games. So that's kind of the way that I define it now. Like, get to people who agrees that maybe entertainment is worse now or games are worse now, and I tell them, okay, Gamergate was like the first people who said, yeah, we kind of want to stop that.
When you say games are worse now, what do you mean?
But I think that, well, for starters, there's a lot of censorship, a lot of censorship, especially in certain topics like sexy stuff and all those things. And there's also more things. I think it's kind of a complex topic to talk, because I think that there are certain philosophies that have gone into gaming that have made like there are things that aren't so obvious. Like, there are games going into a certain route that they are all the same. Like, they have kind of the same mechanics and ways of doing the game that maybe it's not so obvious that it comes from all of this, but it kind of is, because there are certain philosophies that have gone into game development. Like, for example, I have seen a lot of people mention that, like, in the past, most game developers were like supporting of what Gamergate said, but with time, all of those developers were kind of let go of the companies, and the new people who go in is like full ideologies, woke, we want to insert politics into the game, and that's why a lot of games now have like a lot of politics in them.
All right, Kukuruyo, convince me that that's true. What do you think is the most compelling evidence that a lot of the game designers, a new crop of game designers have come in who have more woke politics and are changing games in ways that you think are bad?
Mm, well, for starters, I think all of this wave, there are a lot of examples of how Western games have characters being like less attractive, things like that, which for some people, I guess, is not too relevant that the characters are attractive or not, but for me it is. I mean, I'm a hentai artist, so kinda. And we could say, like, well, this is maybe not a topic that was relevant in English, but for example, in Spanish, have you heard about the controversy with Spider-Man?
Not specifically. Are you referring to how they took out the flags? They
No,
took
no, no,
okay.
no. Well, maybe that for some people that's relevant, the flags thing, but I refer to when did they they did the Spanish version of Spider-Man 2, the latest game. They have made the characters talk in inclusive language, which in Spanish is things like the Latinx thing, with the X, this thing that all Spaniards hate.
Oh, they put Latinx in the game.
Not exactly that word. I think that word exactly isn't, but there's a whole movement from feminists in Spain and in Spanish-speaking countries that tries to forcibly change the entire Spanish language to adapt to gender ideology, and that's parotive. Like there are parts of the game in which the characters speak like with the X and things like that, and it's like if you hear it, it's hard to explain because it's part of the Spanish language, but it's like I don't know. It's like if you are playing a game in the United States and the characters, instead of saying he or she, start to say sir and all of these genders from Tumblr.
So I do want to get into gamers, what that means to you, and what you think gamers are. But before we do that, you were involved in a controversy in 2016 at CometCon where a group of people on social media asked the convention to ban your panel, which was ban your panel, and they succeeded. This did receive pushback. Other people were saying that it's free speech, that it should be allowed to happen. So let me ask you a few questions about this, if you don't mind. Was your panel already approved by the Comic Con staff?
Yeah, but for starters, a thing that was misunderstood is it wasn't a panel; it was a debate.
Debate, okay.
It was supposed to be a debate between me and other people who were against GamerGate. The panel was, well, the debate was approved. In fact, they were the ones asking me to do it. I knew a person who was in the organization because I do a lot of I organize conventions, anime conventions, gaming conventions, all the stuff. And I knew one of them, and he went to me and told me, "We want to do a GamerGate debate. So do you want to be in?" And I told them, "I'm in, but you have to know that this is going to be a shitstorm. Like the moment you announce it, it's going to be fucking hell." And they told me that they wanted that because they liked controversy. And then when they announced the panel, it was just one person sent them an email protesting, and they instantly canceled it.
So I am reading an article. I read an article about this incident. I actually covered it at the time I interviewed you after it happened, um, back in 2016. Now, the people on social media, they were saying that Gamergate is a. Hang on, let's pull up the exact quote here. The Gamergate controversy is a harassment campaign that seeks to eliminate feminism in the gaming industry, and supposedly, according to the article, this person later claimed that the attendees were at the panel or at the debate were going to be Nazis, quote unquote, according to the news
Yeah,
article. So apparently, over 100 people actually supported banning your. Or hang on, is that 100 people
I'm
responding? Hang on, one second. Okay, so there's a campaign. Oh, that's my campaign. Okay, the news article actually talks about how I launched Operation Don't Come at Con, in which over 100 people supported my decision to try and protest the convention's decision to ban your event. Okay, so over 100 people did support that campaign. Did so you expected there to be some pushback to your event? Yes.
mm, yes.
Okay. Why do you think the people wanted to silence your voice and the voices of the anti-Gamergate people who were going to be in the debate?
Well, for starters, I would have to say that the Spanish wokes are kind of a different breed. Like, Spain is probably the wokest country in the planet right now. And like our wokes will play basketball with yours, so to speak. They're very, very crazy. And especially the artistic community, which is basically the ones who did the campaign against the panel, they are very, very, very crazy. They are like Tumblr in real life multiplied by 10. So they kind of, in the end, it's just like virtue signaling amongst them, like who is the most virtuous, so they have to all go against this thing. So they saw blood and they swarmed in, basically.
So this group of people on the internet try to get the panel banned. How does the convention initially handle this?
They basically, if I remember correctly, they received the email and they made instantly an announcement that the panel was cancelled. They didn't even told me. A friend of mine who was in the organization told me, but they didn't inform me.
Did you expect the convention to defend you or defend your right to speak at least?
I didn't expect them to go out like to try to defend me personally, but I expected at least that if they have told me that they wanted controversy because they lacked controversy, at least they would defend that the debate was to be made, but they didn't.
I should point out as well, this is not the only time that this has happened. I actually had a very similar thing happen to me twice. I hosted was going to host three different events, panels at conventions about GamerGate. One was going to be a debate. Um, my NatsuCon panel, there was someone who sent an email to NatsuCon demanding that they cancel the event. NatsuCon actually stood up for me and said that, well, they don't endorse any specific viewpoints. They do want to provide an open forum and supported free speech. So that was good. But my third panel at Archon, they did actually try to cancel that, and they succeeded. A group of people on the internet were implying that having a debate about Gamergate is like having a debate about the Holocaust, and were demanding that Archon cancel the event, and Archon caved in and canceled the event, just like with yours. Um, so this was a known thing that did happen, and of course there was also a controversy at Calgary Expo where a group of Gamergate supporters were kicked out for basically no reason, it seems, just because they had the
That
wrong
was
politics.
the Honey Badgers, was that the thing?
Yes, it was the Honey Badgers.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right, now looking back, I don't want to make this about me too much, but I did launch the Operation Don't CometCon thing. Looking back, I think it was kind of dumb. I probably should have talked with you first and been like, hey, do you want me to try and encourage people to boycott it? Of course, I'm an American. I don't live in Spain, so like, I don't think anyone's going to listen to me anyway. I just wanted to try and pressure them to reverse their decision since they already pre-approved the panel. This wasn't a case where they were like, well, we're thinking about it. We're not sure one way or the other. Um, this was them deliberately canceling a pre-approved event. So I thought that was very much an attack on free speech. In retrospect, I wouldn't have tried to organize a boycott. When my panel was banned at Archon, I didn't boycott them. But that was a year later. Um, so what do you think of the whole Operation Don't CometCon and people trying to encourage a boycott until they reverse their decision? What did you think of people doing that?
Well, I think that it was indeed kind of weird that to do a boycott from the United States for an event in Spain. But there was also some discussion in Spanish, but there wasn't much pro Gamergate or anti Gamergate people in Spain at the time because we kind of get the news a little late than you, so to speak. Like the things that culturally happen in the United States kind of get here a couple years later. So by that time, Gamergate was like a completely unknown thing, except a few people in Spain. So for us, it was like we argued about it for a couple hours, and there wasn't really much more than that. So I mean, I wouldn't want to. I half understand why they will cancel the, the debate if they suddenly realized that it was going to cause a lot of problems for them. The thing that I don't like that they did is that they told me that they wanted controversy and then they folded instantly. That was a little cringe. But I would then personally want to like try to boycott the entire event because they canceled the debate.
Did you end up going?
As a yeah, I went to help in a couple of things, a couple of activities that I did with another people, but not to do gamer stuff.
Did you ever try to host any other debates or events related to GamerGate after this?
Mm, I think not. But as I said, GamerGate in Spain is like not many people. I was going to do this debate because they offered it to me, but I don't know. Mm, it's like if I tried to do a debate about something that happened in Africa 2 years ago. It's like not many people is going to know.
All right. So, do you consider yourself a gamer? Or actually, first, I should ask: is there anything else relating to the CometCon thing you want to talk about?
Mm, not really. I think that was well. Maybe there is one thing that I remember from that discussion. It's just an anecdote, but it's an anecdote that I remember because it's like for me the best representation of the discussions around Gamergate. Because we were speaking, well, we were arguing, me and a couple of pro Gamergate people with a couple of anti Gamergate people on Twitter. And they were doing the typical of making accusations that Gamergate did this or that, and we say, no, we didn't. And suddenly a woman comes in, she injects herself into our discussion, and she says, Gamergate did this thing. I don't remember what it was, but something. And the two other people who were pro Gamergate responded to her and said, that's not true. Do you have any proof that this happened? And instantly what she did was she said, Gamergate says that they aren't about harassment, but now that you are harassing me. And for me, that was like this, like summarized the entire discussion about Gamergate.
Do you consider the people trying to cancel your event? Do you consider them to have engaged in a form of harassment against you? The debate.
Mm, maybe. I mean, just for that thing, probably not. But the group of I know the group of people who did that because I am in kinda the art scene in Spain, and they are artists, and they are totally the type of person who will harass and cancel people. So I don't know if I personally will say that that specific instance is harassment, but the people who did it are harassers without a doubt.
All right. So, do you consider yourself a gamer, and what does that mean to you?
I think, well, yes, I will consider myself a gamer. I would think that a gamer is someone who has gaming as a hobby, but as a like a main hobby. Don't know how to say it in English. Like a main hobby, like you dedicate some relevant amount of time and money into it.
So, I'm sorry. A gamer is someone who's into gaming. You say?
Yeah, like you dedicate more time than just once a month. Maybe you pick up a phone and play Candy Crush. Like uh, I think it's like I don't know. For example, if you translate it to another medium, for example, like anime, if you don't watch absolutely no anime, but one day Dragon Ball is on TV and you watch the episode, I wouldn't say that is an anime fan, an otaku or whatever. But if you watch the entire series and you like it, then maybe you are. So I think that's kind of the same. Like if you play video games kind of in a regular fashion and you buy games, like you dedicate a certain amount of time and effort, so to speak, into the hobby, then you are a gamer. But if you just uh, one day go to a party and play Smash Bros with friends and don't touch a game in a year, I wouldn't say that you are a gamer.
Is the term gamer a gendered term for you?
Mm, I don't think it is in the way that anyone can play like that video games for anyone. I think I don't know to say if it will be. I think that like many things, men and women are going to prefer different things, and I think that gaming attracts more men than women. So I will say that there are more men playing than women playing, but it's not like it's any kind of limitation anyone can play.
Now, on August 28th, 2014, 10 competing outlets all published articles on the same day. These 10 articles were followed by 9 additional articles on other mostly gaming sites over the next few days, which some saw as calling for an end to the gamer identity. What did you think of these articles?
Yeah, that's kind of what made me go into GamerGate because they say a lot of things that. The thing is that I have been in like organizing conventions and things like that for like 20 years by now. I know in real life an insane amount of anime fans, video game fans, and all kind of geeks. So when I started to see all of this like kind of accusation that started to pop up at that time with those articles, not just from the articles, but from people defending them, that, like saying, "Oh, gamers hate women and don't want women playing video games, or they are racist or homophobes or whatever." Like this doesn't match at all my experience in my entire life. Like I barely know any gamer or geek in general who will fit the description that they will mentioning in those articles.
So you think that they were misrepresenting what gamers were and portraying them in a very negative light unfairly?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think gamers is a very big amount of people in the world, so you are gonna find basically anything that you want to find. But I think that if we are speaking like in a general way, saying that gamers are on average this, I think is a complete misrepresentation to say that something like men don't want to play female characters or don't want women to play video games is like the absolute opposite of what I have always seen in these circles.
Well, why do you think they wrote these articles?
I think that this is kind of when virtue signaling started to get like people started to do a lot of virtue signaling. Like they realized that saying certain things made them look better, and they wanted to be the ones that looked better. And this is kind of where all of these things started, of people going full into accuse people of being X thing, because if I accuse people of being X thing, that means that I am not that thing, and I am very cool and morally superior because I am pointing out to people who are doing those things. So I think that's kind of why all of these things came in. But like a lot of mediums realized that they could prompt themselves up as the superior, morally superior, because they are pointing out to others.
If the games press tried to reform after the ethical violations or alleged ethical violations were uncovered, or if they just even ignored the ethical questions and didn't write these gamers are dead articles, do you think that Gamergate still would have blown up into this massive controversy?
Hmm, that's a hard question. I think that probably wouldn't have started at that specific point, because it started because a very obvious thing that everyone could see, that was the gamers are dead. But I think that, as I mentioned, I think that more or less at that time is when this whole virtue signal thing started to go strong. And I think that from that point onwards, we're probably going to see a lot of people and other media doing exactly that, like calling people racist, sexist, and whatever. And at some point, like it will have exploded in any other way.
Why do you think the games press didn't just say, hey, look, we made a couple mistakes, we're going to implement a couple reforms and try to do better in the future? Why not just come out and say that instead of these articles?
Well, if they wanted precisely to look like the morally superior, they are not going to say, "Oh, we missed the ball." Well, we're going. What they're going to do is precisely go like, "Oh, these gamers are attacking a woman, so they are all sexist, and we are the cool ones."
All right, now let's play devil's advocate a little bit. Now, I know that you don't consider gamers to be sexist. It's a large group of people. You say you could find anyone in this large group of people who meets any criteria possible. Obviously, there's billions of gamers on Earth. Probably some of them are murderers, some of them are rapists, some of them might even be like terrorists and organizations. Who knows, right? Um,
Mm.
but that's obviously not the vast majority of gamers. That doesn't really represent gamer culture in your eyes. But there is a perception some people have that women are treated differently in gaming communities, or at least in voice chat in some online multiplayer games. But why do you think that is? And do you think there's anything to that idea that gaming culture has a sexist element within it?
The thing is more that I believe that the majority of people who say those things don't really believe it. Like I think it's the thing that they have to say to virtue signal and to pretend to be that they care about these things. I think that the majority of people who say that don't really think it. And when people say it and they really believe it, it's usually based on anecdote. Like, and I'm not saying that it doesn't never happen. I mean, it must happen sometimes for some people. But when I look, for example, at examples that people try to show about, oh, they did me differently because I'm a woman, it's usually like they go into a first person shooter, for example, which are games that have a very, very, very low amount of women playing, and there's data for it. Like I think there was a study that say that only 1% of people playing first-person shooters are women. So if you go to a game like that and you find a children, because many of the videos that people show are like children, it's like, yeah, you're probably gonna find a kid that has never played with a woman in all of the years he has played and suddenly finds a woman and he starts to say bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know about the 1% number. I that might be true for some games, though. I think for I'd imagine that probably it's more than 1% for first-person shooters as a whole. Though some specific games might have a lower number, like closer to 1%.
I mean, I'm mentioning just a number that was in a study that was done about the demographics for different games, and it was like 90% or so of demographic in puzzle games was women, and then it was going down and down and down, and FPS was 1%.
Do you
I
think
haven't done a study myself.
do you think that this first-person shooter, you say it's a first-person shooter phenomenon, let's just run with that for now. Of these younger boys um, or teenagers saying sexist stuff in games, do you think that that is indicative of a problem, at least in that specific sphere?
It depends. I mean, if some of them are really like sexist or whatever, then yeah, it's a problem that they are. But I think that many times it's just it's a kid saying stupid shit, and when some years pass, they will probably stop doing that, or simply like trash talking on the internet. Like I think that if you go to play multiplayer games, like almost every match is someone saying something about whatever. I mean, it doesn't have to be like woman. It's just people get angry, and if they have some identity characteristic of yours, they will attack you for it. Like if I play League of Legends or something like that, and I talk with a friend in Spanish, and the other team realizes that I'm Spanish, I usually they make like comments about being poor because I am Spanish and things like that. It's like okay, it's like they're going to do it. They are the rival team. I don't know.
I know you said that games journalism wasn't a top priority for you, but we are entering the games journalism segment, so I'll ask, what do you think of games journalism?
It's bad. Like, I mean, yeah, I stopped paying attention to them years before GamerGate, but the things that they write, like, they have gone worse. Like before, it was like all of the conflict of interest and all of the stuff that GamerGate denounced, but now is that plus they have to write continuously articles about how everything is sexist and racist and all of this stuff. And they don't seem to know much about the medium that they write about. Like they write a lot of comments. I don't know if you saw, I think it was like 2 days ago that Polygon had to delete an article because they say that the RPG genre was dead before Persona 5 came in.
No, I'm not familiar with this controversy. Could you walk me through it, please?
Yeah, they have deleted the article, but probably someone saved it somewhere. But basically, they wrote an article saying that we have to be thankful to Persona 5 because basically the RPG genre was dying, and then Persona 5 came in and saved it. And obviously, a lot of people mention it. You know that that's the same year of Nier Automata and Dragon Quest and a lot of other RPG games, and they deleted the article.
Were there any reforms you would like to have seen happen to the games press?
Mm, reforms I want to see happen. Not sure. I mean, there was some reforms. I think that some sites added how it is called, like an ethics code or something like that.
You wanted them to make ethics policies for their sites?
Hmm. Not for me specifically, but I think that for the people who care about it, it's like a good thing. The problem that I see is that it is one thing that they add the policy and another thing that they follow it, which I think that they haven't.
How responsive to calls for reform do you think the games press was?
Not much. I mean, I think that some sites added a code of conduct, but they haven't been really following it. But most of them, I think they just double down on attacking gamers, and that's all of they did.
If you were the editor in chief of a gaming website and some of your employees were accused of ethical violations, how would you have handled the situation?
Hmm. I guess that there must be like some internal process that I do not know to handle these things. But if I think the first thing will probably be to check if there is truth to the allegations, and then act according what is the internal mechanic that these companies have, that I guess is to either warn the person to don't do it again, or if they have done it several times, apply some kind of punishment, I guess.
In September 2014, it was revealed that nearly 150 games journalists from competing publications were in a mailing group called GameJournoPros. What did you think of this revelation?
Yeah, that's a thing that I found really relevant, yes, because that's, I mean, even it's just video games, but I think that any kind of collusion like that is kind of dangerous because that's when you are generating narratives and you can basically convince people of whatever, which I think is what happened basically. Like they created narratives about a lot of things, not just Gamergate, and they managed to do it because they just copy paste this exact same thing and they repeat it, and there's a point. Like right now, if you try to search for anything that happened during that era, you can't because it's just a wave of articles just saying the exact same thing. It happens to me when I told you that I have some info or whatever, and I tried to look for it, and it was like impossible because anything that you try to look, it's a wave of articles just copy pasting each other, and you can't find anything else.
Some Gamergate supporters believed that pressuring advertisers to pull out would be a good way to convince gaming publications to initiate ethical reforms. What did you think of this strategy?
Hmm. I'm not too much of a fan of it because, I mean, for me, it's kind of too close to cancel culture, so to speak. And I know it's not the same thing because it's uh, like you mean those campaigns that were that about taking advertising out of sites, right?
Yes, like Operation Disrespectful Nod.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, in a way, I understand it because there is an objective that is for them to apply a code of conduct to the site, and if they do that, then people will stop contacting advertising. So it's not exactly the same thing as cancel culture, but for me, I'm not a fan of that when something happens that you don't like, you contact the bosses and advertisers and try to back up people. So even if it's not exactly the same thing and there is some justification for it, I still didn't participate on it because I didn't like it too much.
Do you have any thoughts on deep freeze?
That that's the site that compiled information or something like that.
Yes, Bone Golem created it, and it's a catalog of different issues in games journalism, including specific information about each publication.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, if if it's done by people who are like constant enough that they maintain it, it's a very cool tool to have for the precisely because things are getting buried in the past and things like that. It's cool to have something like that. Yes.
In August 2015, Michael Koretsky, a regional director for the Society of Professional Journalists, hosted the SPJ Airplay conference. The idea of the conference was to have journalistic ethics experts meet with Gamergate supporters to discuss their concerns about games journalism and the way the media covered Gamergate. The second half of the conference was interrupted by bomb threats, forcing the convention center to be evacuated. Do you have any thoughts on this event?
I think it was an interesting idea, but I don't know how much effective one could say it is because I mean, for starters, no one on the other side went, so there wasn't really too much of a debate, so to speak, because there was journalists and some of them tried to push a little, but it wasn't like arguing with someone like Anita Sarkeesian or something like that. And I think that also some of the panelists, I don't know what were they doing there, honestly.
Why do you think the media largely didn't cover SPJ Airplay?
Well, it wasn't a good image for them. I mean, uh, they basically ended up agreeing with us in Airplay that the Gamergate was right. So why gaming sites are going to report? Yeah, the journalist association has said that we are in the wrong.
Do you have any thoughts on other Gamergate panels like the South by Southwest Save Point panel or my Gamergate panels at Arch Anime and Natsucon?
But I didn't. I mean, I live in Spain, so I didn't go to those events.
Okay. They all three of those were actually broadcast online too, so I thought you might have saw them there.
I haven't seen. I didn't know that they were in the internet.
Some people believed that Gamergate should have ended after SPJ Airplay. What did you think?
Mm, depends. I mean, I don't think that it matters too much if it is specifically like Gamergate as a movement, what keep existing. But I think that if things hadn't been solved and in fact things have gone worse, why would you like stop? Like, I don't know, saying, oh, we have done this debate. let's stop trying to fight or care or fix these issues, I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you keep GamerGate. You can ignore the name GamerGate, throw it into the garbage can if you want, but the things themselves that we were worried about uh, are still there, so we should still have, we still try to fix them, so to speak.
I'm not sure if it's been translated into Spanish yet or if there are plans to do that, but have you seen the recently released Airplay documentary?
I tried to watch it, but was honestly kind of bad, so I stopped watching it.
Because of the language barrier or because of other reasons?
No, no, I understand English pretty well, but I think it was kind of an inconnected mess.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you plan on watching it in full later on at some point?
I don't think so. I mean, what I watched, I was trying to look at it from the perspective of someone who, I mean, me being someone who knows all of the things that happened, I could kind of follow it. But if I try to look it from like, okay, if I didn't know what Gamergate was, and I watch this, I will basically understand nothing that they were talking about.
People actually made a very similar critique of my first book that if you were familiar with a lot of the events, it was very, very good, and but that I didn't always go enough into detail about each specific incident. And so I've taken that criticism to heart actually with the second book, and this second book is much more detailed, much more detailed.
Maybe too much.
Some people might say. Do you have any thoughts on the Kunkel Awards?
The what?
So, after Airplay, the Society of Professional Journalists created a number of awards to try and encourage good games journalism. They were the Kunkel Awards, and they were only around for less than a decade, a relatively short period of time. But the idea was that they were going to reward good games journalism and create a positive incentive for games journalists to do a good job.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. I mean, I think that obviously didn't work, but I mean, on itself, it was good to try to do something active to fix issues. So, I mean, good for them.
Do you think the GamerGate banner should have been used to take on gaming industry issues outside of just games journalism?
Well, I think I'm going to respond something similar to what I have said, that it doesn't necessarily have to be that we use like the Gamergate name or whatever, but I think that the issues, like for me, I know there was like two camps in Gamergate, although I didn't go too much into infighting because I didn't like that too much. There was like the camp who said only games journalism is relevant, and the side that say no, there's also like cultural stuff. I was more like in this latest camp, and for me, it's kind of like I understand that people want to focus just on the gaming part, on the game journaling part, but I think that the problems that games journalists have come precisely from the cultural part. Like they want to do all of this virtue signaling using a progressive ideology to look good. So if trying to fix only the journalist part is like fixing the, what's the expression, like fixing the symptoms but not the disease or something like that was the expression.
Well, we're definitely going to get into that, not in the next segment, but in the segment after that, it will come up, and we can discuss that and explore it in greater detail. Um, but right now, we're moving on to the artistic freedom section, and I know that you said that this was the main part of GamerGate that you cared about. So I guess I'll leave it a little bit open-ended with my first question, and that is, convince me and the audience that there is an issue with artistic freedom being under threat in the gaming industry or in other areas.
Well, I think that with all of the, it's more of a, people try to look at this from the perspective of like saying that oh, Anita Sarkeesian is not in the industry doing stuff. But for me, it's more the issue that all of these things that happened, the danger that they had, and it happened, is that they moved the Overton window to the point that certain things are cannot be done, and all of that stuff. So in the West right now, there is a lot of certain designs that you cannot do, especially with female characters, or that you cannot make the villain be the black person and things like that. That had happened a lot. And for me, it's hard to explain. Like there has been like a cultural shift, so to speak, in which people now see as unacceptable a lot of things that in the past you could do, and I don't see a justification for it. Like why they have to be like unacceptable to do. Like I don't see why sexy things are bad and all of this stuff, or why making a character that is black be the villain is bad. But now a lot of more people than before see that as unacceptable, and because it's unacceptable, they try to cancel people if they do it. So that makes people who are independent artists they are afraid because they have their livelihood in danger, so they censor themselves. And then big companies see that there are a lot of people doing these cancellations, and they make their artists do or not do certain things. So I think there's a lot of censorship, not in the like people use censorship as if the government is coming and forcing people to do or not do these things. But for me, it's more like you are creating an environment in which people cannot do the things that they really want to do because either their bosses forbid them to do it, and that's where the money comes from, or if they do it because they are independent, they are going to be dogs. They are going to contact whatever other job that person has and destroy their life. So in the end, people are afraid. And like I personally know that I can only do the kind of comics that I do about culture war and all this stuff, or even hentai drawings, because I work for myself. If I was working for some company, I will probably they will have contacted it already and they will have fired me. I mean, I was doxxed once. So.
You were doxxed?
Yeah, nothing much happened of it. Like someone contacted me in my phone and things like that, but then they stopped, so nothing happened. But yes, I was doxxed.
Was this because you supported GamerGate or for other reasons?
I'm not sure, but I think it probably was because of the sad puppies, because it happened around that time.
Okay.
Probably because of that.
So, what do you think is the best evidence that there is this chilling effect in the industry, or that people are potentially getting canceled over the artistic vision that they have?
Well, for example, well, I have a story that you probably don't know because it happened in Spain. You know about Kingdom Come Deliverance, all of the problems that were with that?
Only vaguely. I'm possibly interviewing the game developer one of the game developers who made that game, actually. Possibly.
Mm. The guy who did the game was is Babra the one we are going to
Is who?
Babra is the guy who created the game.
Well, hang on one second. I don't know if they go by that. Potentially. They use a different name on Twitter.
Mm. Well, the thing is that when that game was being developed, the game is supposedly like a super realistic, ultra realistic game in the medieval time in Bohemia, the 1300 or something like that. The guy wanted the game to be like super realistic in all aspects, like the gameplay, and then he he hired the historians to do the game like hyper realistic that how it was in the era, and that people started to to say, oh, you have to add a female protagonist. I say, well, no, because the protagonist is a knight in uh, medieval time in Yugoslavia, so no. And then people start to say like, oh, you are sexy, so they try to cancel him. And the guy in this case uh, didn't bow down, so to speak. So he insisted on. They also asked for him to add a black protagonist, and he also said black person in medieval time in Bohemia, no. And he didn't bow down. And in Spain, what happened is that he was going to come to. He was invited to a convention to speak, and when he was going to come, the activists, the woke people in Spain saw it, and they made a campaign saying that a Nazi was going to come to speak in the convention, and in the end, that made the guy not be at the convention. So I think that's the kind of thing that you see happening all the time, and there may be people who have the strength of will and the position, monetary position, so to speak, to hold on and still do what they want. But I think that for most people, if you are against, tons of people canceling you, doxing you, saying that you are a Nazi or whatever, like for most people, I think they are in the end are going to not do what they're planning to do. And if they are working for a company, companies are like super scared of people making these campaigns. So I think that's kind of more of like the issue, and we see it in how games are done in the West right now with a lot of designs that, if you compare Japanese games, the designs are always not just because of the sexy part. It's like you notice they have a lot of more freedom to do the things that they want, and in the
Yes, it does
West,
seem so.
in the West, it's like even setting aside all of the designs of female characters that look like a man with a wig, it's like you see that the games are much more constrained to be the same kind of game, especially in aesthetics.
I do want to qualify. I actually reached out to two different developers of Kingdom Come Deliverance, one of which is Daniel Vavra, who you mentioned, and another
Mm.
one is another developer who also worked on the game. I might be interviewing both of them. I don't know. We'll see. Um, but you say that Japanese Japanese developers seem to be more able to explore different artistic themes and different artistic works. And I understand why you say that. That is a perception a lot of people have, and I probably even like agree with it. But like, let's push back a little bit, because if someone is more of a social justice oriented person and they're hearing this conversation, they might say, well, the Overton window of what's allowed in Japanese media might be bigger in some ways. Like they are allowed to have more sexy characters, more uh, maybe more violence in some ways, things like that. They're able to do certain things that Western game developers are a lot more reticent to try out or are unwilling to try out because the publishers are telling them they can't do it or because they're afraid of mobs or whatever it happens to be. But couldn't someone argue that Western games that they are more open in one specific way at least, which is that they are able to explore uh, these more like you couldn't well you could but they would say that you can have certain stories that the Western Overton window has shifted to allow more and more and shifted to promote like lesbian love stories in games and things like this that might not be as common in Japanese media.
But Japanese media has much more of that than the West, actually.
That wouldn't really surprise me if that were true.
I mean, there is literally genres for that. Like Yuri is for relationships between two women, and Yao is for relationships with men. And they have existed in the 80s, and they are very popular.
All right. What do you think of the arguments about video games causing or reinforcing real world sexist attitudes?
I don't think it's true at all. Like I've said, I have both in my experience that I haven't seen this happen. I know very few people that I would consider in my life that I have met to be gamers and be like sexist. And I have also in numbers, I haven't seen studies proving this at all. I think almost all of the studies I have seen say that gaming doesn't increase these attitudes or even decrease them. So I don't believe it.
Okay, I won't spend a whole lot of time focusing on this, but obviously you are an artist who makes you call yourself a hentai artist in addition to other artwork as well, yes?
Mm, yes.
Okay. So, um, wouldn't some of these people say that works of art are meant to make people see things differently or explore different ideas or try out new things and new experiences and new stories that they might not have seen otherwise, and that these stories, part of the power that they can have is that they can help to some extent shape people's views of the world.
In which way do you mean?
Well, in any way, right? Like someone reads the book 1984 and they're like, "Wow, totalitarianism doesn't seem like it's very good."
Yeah, but it's not like the book more than showing you things that. I mean, it's a fiction, but it's a fiction showing you things that actually happen. So it's more like showing you things and you decide if you like it or not, which some things some people seem to like.
Well, some people might like it, but they might argue that some ideas that exist in the world are bad and some ideas are good. And if a fictional work portrays a bad idea and presents it as being good, then some people might think that the bad idea is good.
Well, then you have to do another work that present it as bad to counter the argument.
So you think it's just you need more speech, you need more art, you need more ideas out there,
Mm.
and they can compete to see which ones are better?
Basically, I mean, if I see, for example, an artist that is like a woke artist and they do a comic, I'm not going to try. Like, I think that the things they do in these comics are completely stupid and hateful many times, but I'm not going to try to make it so their comic is banned or something. What they're going to do is make my own comic and log my ass off of them, basically.
I don't know if this was a big thing in Europe or in Spain, but in the United States in the 1990s and 2000s, there was a moral panic about video games causing violence. Now, this moral panic seemed to have died down by the time GamerGate happened, and it seemed like the arguments that the people were making about video games causing violence were proven wrong, or at least there's a lot of evidence to show that it's probably not true. Did you have something like that happen in Spain?
Yes, and actually, I have an anecdote that you're gonna find funny. In Spain, in the ninth, no, when did Final Fantasy VIII come out?
The late 90s, like 97, 98, probably, I think. I could be wrong. Could be like
Mm,
99.
right. At that time, when that came out, there was a case in Spain that was one guy who actually did it and lives very few kilometers where I live. He killed his parents with a katana, and he did it because he was mentally unwell, and it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with video games or anything. But when the police came in, they found out he was playing Final Fantasy VIII. So they told that to the press, and there was like a very big panic for like a year in which basically people say that games made you kill people, and you could see in the news they showed videos about Final Fantasy VIII, and the story was completely different. Like they said, the protagonist is a mercenary who kills innocent people and things like that. They made it like super huge.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Final Fantasy VIII was 1999. Well, I mean, he is kind of a mercenary. He doesn't kill innocent people, though, to my knowledge. Squall?
It wasn't like a school to train. I don't remember, but it was like a school.
Yeah, it was the garden systems like Balam Garden and other gardens where they were training to be soldiers basically, um, and they did sometimes take work from other people. Like villages would hire their mercenaries to guard the village. Um, the the nation state of Donnet, I think it was Donnet or Zillet, they hired mercenaries to defend them against an invasion by Galbadia, which is like the main bad guy faction, at least in the beginning of the game.
Hmm. I don't remember many details of the game right now, but the way that they presented it in the news was like absolutely evil. Like it wasn't like, yeah, it's a school where they sometimes get hired. No, it was like these dudes are like African militias or something.
And to be clear, I think it's totally fine to explore a story where people are mercenaries. I think that that's totally fine, and I think that Final Fantasy VIII is a pretty good game, a pretty awesome game
Mhm.
actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to explore those things. I was saying it because it was like the media exaggerated it a lot to present it as if the video game made people kill people at random, you know.
Yeah, and obviously that's not true. Some political activists believed that using social media campaigns to demand artists change artistic elements of their work was a good thing, such as hashtag change the cover. What did you think of this tactic?
We absolutely oppose the tactics. And that was the because of the Joker cover, right?
The Batgirl 41 alternate variant cover?
Yes, I think it was because of that that campaign.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember some of that. Yeah, that was a very stupid thing. Like it made sense to make that cover. I don't know.
Did you see
Yeah, for me,
people go ahead.
mm, no, I mean that is kind of exactly the thing that I refer to. Like the someone makes a cover because it makes sense and it's a cool cover, and you don't even have to buy it. It was like an optional cover, I think.
Yeah, it was.
And then people start to make campaigns until someone concedes and they stop doing it. Like they did the same with a lot of things. Like I saw an article about, I think it was Larian Studios is the one that did Divinity Original Sin.
Uh, I I don't know about Divinity Original Sin. I know that they tweeted out an asset from their game that received a lot of controversy. I can double check to make sure it was Divinity.
I know that there is an article with, I think it was the art director, and he said that what that they released when they did, I think it was the first Divinity, that they released a cover that has designs like kind of like more skimpy, like the characters were an armor that showed part of the skin, and they received like a lot of death threats and things like that, and they had to change the cover for the final game.
Yeah, there was a controversy surrounding Divinity Original Sin, though I think I mixed that up with it. There was a separate controversy regarding Lionhead Studios. The two different controversies, but yes. Do you think that things like this, that tactics like this, create a chilling effect on artists?
Yes, absolutely. Like I know personally people who have ideas and they want to do them, but it's like I'm not going to do this because they will kill me, basically.
Where do you think the lines are between criticism and advocacy of censorship?
Hmm. I think that just making a comment saying that you like or don't like something, that's perfectly okay. You don't see an issue with that. I think that there is a problem when you start to throw accusations that are very clearly intended to shut up the other person. And like, for example, I'm remembering another controversy right now. I don't know if you remember the Teen Titans controversy.
I do not actually. Please elaborate.
Yes, they did. I think it was a cover for Teen Titans in which Starfire, I think it is the character. No, maybe it wasn't Starfire, but one character. She was drawn with like the typical skimpy clothes that the superheroes wear. That they are very tight to the body and very revealing. And people started to make a campaign against it, the typical cancellation, and they started to say they completely made it up. There was absolutely no proof. They started to say that the author was a rapist, And they said it so much that they copy pasted it in a lot of articles, to the point that if you looked the name of the artist on Google, the entire first page of Google was this guy is a rapist.
Do you do you have any thoughts on the removal of content from Japanese or other foreign games when they are localized?
I hate it. Don't do that stuff. There's a lot of controversy right now with the localization and the translations and all this stuff.
I've seen. I'm not done a deep dive into this, but it's been on my Twitter feed quite a bit, and people are talking about.
Mm,
I've seen some screenshots where people who claim that they are localizers for anime or for games, they, in some cases, are openly bragging about how they purposely distort the Japanese works.
yes, yes, it has been happening for a lot of time. That they change stuff to things that have no relationship with the original, and then they brag about it in their Twitter feeds and so. They are certified, like they are people. Some of the names I don't recognize, so I don't know if they are real or not. But there are some of them who are identified as real localizers from companies.
And there was one person I saw. This was an older tweet from back in the day. This wasn't one of the recent controversies, but one person who claimed to be a localizer said that they purposely put references to GamerGate in their works when they localized them just to fuck with people and fuck with the GamerGate people. And this did actually happen.
Mm,
If you recall, Prison School, they actually changed the dialogue of the show
yes,
and added references to GamerGate for seemingly no apparent reason.
yeah, they did. That's the kind of thing that people refer to when we say don't change things to political stuff of the West. Like, I mean, everyone understands that you cannot do like a literal translation of Japanese because it's not, you can't do that. And I don't think the AI is going to work well either, because the AI is probably going to do literal translations. But it's one thing to say there are maybe 2, 3 ways in which I could translate this text. I'm going to translate it the best I can. And a different thing is to say, oh, Japanese is complex. I'm going to say that the GamerGate is evil in this anime.
Yes, they're two very different things. And obviously, like you said, localization, you can translate certain things a number of different ways, and I think that that's fine and understandable as long as you try to do a good job with it. But to deliberately like inject stuff that wasn't in there at all, especially like your
Mm,
personal political views or just completely changing the artwork and dialogue just because you don't like it personally, I don't think that does a service. I think that does a disservice to the artist and to the consumer and to the art
yeah, yeah,
form as a whole.
I don't like it at all. I think that no matter how much you think, I don't have to agree with the things that are said in the original work. Like if there is a character in the original work that is legitimately sexy, so to speak, I don't have to agree with the things that the character said, but I want the dialogue to be there because it's there for a reason, and I want to see what the character says. I will decide for myself if the character is evil or not.
Some critics of Gamergate have argued that the movement was mostly or entirely right wing. Do you think that's accurate?
No, not at all. I, I'm personally not right wing, and I mean there are right wingers in the movement, obviously, but for the data, I saw that you had Glasgow in an interview, and
Yes.
all of the data that he compiled, so that's not true.
Do you want to talk about your political views or philosophy?
Mm, it's kind of complex. I mean, technically, we're going to do like a very summarized version. In the left-right spectrum, that will be like center-left. But I don't really ascribe too much to the right and left dichotomy, so to speak. For me, politics is much more complex, and I basically just see each issue separately, and there are some things the right wing side, and things are going to be more in the left wing side. And I think there are more sides to the axis. Like I'm much more concerned Like for me, I don't really care if you are left or right, if you are kind of moderate and logical about the things you say. I'm more worried about like the axis of liberty and authoritarianism. I'm way into the liberty axis.
Now, we don't have to talk about this at all. It's not related to GamerGate, but you do have a trans flag in your avatar, and I'm sorry, in your Twitter profile. Are you yourself trans, or do you consider yourself a supporter of trans people, or?
No, that's just for fun, for shit and giggles,
Okay.
because of the reactions that it causes on people. And I'm not against trans people or anything, but it is like for fun.
Though you did speak out publicly and defend the artist, I believe, who is responsible for Bridget's character in Guilty Gear, and you defended their artistic vision of having the character be trans, right?
Yeah, for me, it's more like I mean, I don't like death of the author, so to speak. So if the author says in his final word that the character is trans, then I guess the character is trans. We can have a conversation about how it doesn't make sense and that he's probably saying it just because it's what he has to say because they want to make the game. Uh, there's a whole conversation about how they want to make the game no for the West because it doesn't sell well in Japan, and maybe they are pretending that the character is trans in the West because in Japan they didn't even know that. Like it caught them by surprise that the character was trans when they made the announcement.
Well,
So
so
yeah, yeah.
you might know more about the Guilty Gear thing than me. Um, I think what it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of a layperson, I don't play Guilty Gear. I think that like her story is that she was like raised as a boy,
No, it's
right?
the original story. I mean, I'm not a super expert
Or
in
raised
the
as a
game,
girl
but I
or
have seen a few videos. It was a guy who was raised as a girl because there, he has a twin, and twins in that village are like bad news because of some tradition or something. And so they made one of the twins, they raised it as a guy, and Bridget was raised as a girl. And he didn't know, I don't remember if he knew or not that he was a man or not, but the thing is that he was like the first trap in Japanese media, like the guy who is kind of feminine and things like that. And then in the new game, I'm not even sure that they have changed it because if you look at people who have played a lot of the game and they explain the story, apparently the story of the new game doesn't really say that the character is trans. It's just that there is one scene that is kind of a humor scene in which he makes a comment like saying that he's a girl, but the way that he says in Japanese is the way that it's they say it in trap culture, like in the otokonoko trap culture in Japan. They have like a way to speak in which they say, "Oh, I am a girl," but they aren't really saying that they are a girl. It's like a joke, and I think that's what it is. But then the author say, "No, no, the character is trans." It's like kind of confusing.
well, if I again, I'm a layperson here, but I think they had the character because they were raised as a girl because of the stigma in the village about twins, and they lived as a girl for a long time, and then they wanted to like they wanted to prove themselves as a man, but then later on the character I think came to terms with them being a woman, and decided that they wanted to go that path. Like they had like a, I guess you could say like a dysphoria about it, and then they ultimately decided, no, actually, I am a woman, or I want to be a woman, and that's, I think that's how they ended up doing it, right?
I think that's how they are trying to present it. But I mean, for the videos that I have seen of people who are fans of the game talking about it, the game has like several endings. And the thing about the character saying, "Oh, I am a girl," only happens in the ending that is not the canon ending. It's something like that. I can probably find some videos about it if you want to check on it, because I'm not an expert on it. But for me, it's more like I think that probably it's highly likely that the artist didn't intend for the character to be trans, but when they saw that this got like strength in the West, they went like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's trans."
Now
That's probably what happened.
I do know a trans person who plays Guilty Gear a lot, or used to at least, and she likes Bridget as a character and likes the character. Do you think that things like representation matter when it comes to games and artwork?
I I don't really like the argument. I mean, I have never needed to have any of my identities. Uh, like I don't need Spanish characters. If there is a Spanish character, it's like, oh, interesting or cool or whatever. But it's not like I don't need a Spanish character, or I don't need characters that have I don't know. I am left. I don't know how to say it. Left-footed is how it's said. Like I use my left foot instead of the right foot.
Well, do you think that that's that
I'm not
that
sure.
I don't want to be like a woke guy, but do you think that that's because you're European and there aren't there doesn't appear to be or has perhaps ever have been a shortage of European characters in games, whereas if you were like black or trans or a woman or whatever, that you might feel differently about that?
But European is not the same as Spaniard. I mean, there's a lot of different cultures in Europe, and we Spaniards are a little different that you would say an Englishman or a French. And so I don't think it's like if you show a character that is European, it's like it has they have the point of contact with me that they are European, but I don't know. It's like I don't care if I see a character that is black, or the characters in anime are almost all of them Japanese. I really don't care. I don't need them to have my identities. I don't need them to have my sexual identity. I can watch a character that is gay. I don't really need any of that. So I don't believe that it is. I think that if someone needs a character to be like them to identify with the character, that's telling more of the person that the medium. That the person is probably a little narcissistic if they need the characters to be like them. That they can't identify with a character or like a character if they aren't exactly like them. I have never needed a Spanish character or a left-footed character in anime or any other identity that I have.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Sorry, I don't usually ask this question, but because you have the flag in your avatar or in your bio, I want to ask you if you're trying to write a trans character in a story that you're working on, how do you think is a good way to do that well?
Hmm. Well, I don't have any trans character right now in my works, but I will basically make them like any other character, and the fact that they are trans will be like an afterthought, so to speak. That's how I think you should do it. The works that I have seen that has trans characters that I have liked are literally works in which it means absolutely nothing for the plot. It's just, yeah, at some point you realize the character is trans, or you know it from the beginning, but it doesn't really matter, and you see it just as a character.
Have your politics changed since Gamergate or due to Gamergate?
Mm, I don't think that they have changed. Like my ideas are the same, but I think that I approach things in a different way because the main thing probably is that in the past when GamerGate started, I still believe that people on the other side were probably honest in the things that they believe, and now I believe that most of them were virtue signaling, and they weren't really they don't really believe what they say. It's just an attempt to win internet moral points.
Are you okay with gaming sites criticizing games through a political or religious lens, such as a Marxist, feminist, Christian, or other lens?
Depends. I think that, I mean, all of them have a place. I mean, it's okay to do the criticism, but you probably need to know where you are doing it. Like if, for example, you are a site that has a section for political discussion, that's probably okay to do like articles in that space that are about politics. But when you have like an entire row of gaming sites mix politics with their articles at all times, I think that's kind of bad.
Well, what about Christ Center Gamer, for instance, right? Christ Center Gamer reviews games from a Christian perspective. They do two different review scores. They do one based on how good the game is, and one based on how closely the game maps onto Christian morality.
Mm. That's fun. I mean, it's like a site that does it, like the niche that they are trying to target is that.
Well, isn't Polygon? They don't have separate scores at Polygon. I'm not sure they use scores at all, but they do consider themselves an openly progressive gaming site. So if they want to write a bunch of articles analyzing games from what they consider to be a progressive perspective, is that
But they
okay?
were the thing is that were they created as a site? Like I don't know about this Christian site, but for what you say, I imagine that the site was created for that. Like they present themselves as this is a Christian site, and we do analysis with this lens.
Yes, yes, correct. But Polygon I think does the same thing. I'm not sure when they first launched they called themselves that, but they do today call themselves a progressive site.
But I think that's like a how to say it. Like I think that when it started, they pretended to be, or they were a normal site, and they simply with time done they have mixed so much their politics with their video games articles that at some point they have just wear the badge of honor of woke politics in their name and they just say it. But I think it's more like a consequence of them doing it so much time that at the end they have gone open with that. But we are this, not that they created the site for that.
But even if they did want to change the focus of their website over time, isn't that okay?
I mean, it is their right to do it, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to find it okay. I mean, I think that they shouldn't, if they pretended to be like a normal gaming site, they should separate those things. If they want to do it, they can, but then I'm going to call on their bullshit and not read them.
Do you think there can be any value in analyzing games or other works of art through a political lens?
Probably, but as I said, it's more like if you want to do it in like the Christian guy that you mentioned, like I do analysis based on this lens, like okay, or you want to have like you have your gaming site and you have a section that is we accept articles from people doing like political analysis and you have people analyzing it from different perspectives or whatever can be interesting. For me, the problem is not like you have that sometimes or you have a section for that or you have a website for that. Is that all of the gaming websites are like injecting their politics, and it's always the same politics also in things that should not have the politics. It's like the best example is this article about the PlayStation 5 that talk about Trump for most of the time.
So, is your issue that they're doing this, making these critiques from a supposedly progressive perspective, or is your argument that the problem is that it's seemingly the only perspective?
That's I think that's an issue. Yes, but like if you do the criticism, I can simply not agree with it, and that's it. My issue is more like they are doing it where it doesn't belong and it's always the same. Like, yeah, if you go to a gaming site, I'm guessing that if you go to the Christian guy site to see the review, you know what you are getting into. You go there because you want to see, oh, how this guy have rated this game, on how much Christian the game is. But if you go to like today, maybe we know that those sites are very political, but in 2013, for example, you go to Polygon and you expect to see a review about if the latest Persona is a cool game or not to find an entire article about if one of the characters is trans or not.
Some people say that Gamergate was the quote first battle of the culture war. Do you have any thoughts on that framing?
I don't think it was the first. Probably there were others first, but like the Themes Plus and all of this stuff, and even earlier than that. But was probably the one that took these discussions to the mainstream, so to speak. Like I think that the one thing in which Gamergate won, so to speak, is that we took something that was discussed like only in a niche, and we took it to like the greater thing. Like we made people realize that many of these gaming sites were doing all of this bullshit.
What do you think of the framing of Gamergate being a response to a moral panic about video games?
More like a response. I think it's what I said kind of at the beginning, that more like a response is we tried to stop that response. Like we knew that if Nita Sarkeesian and people like that, their ideas metastasized into society, there would be a moral panic.
What do you think of the framing of Gamergate as a battle between those who believed in classical liberal values like artistic freedom, free speech, and pluralism, and those who didn't?
Mm, Complex. I, the thing is that, as I say, I think that most of the people who were in like the anti-Gamergate side, what they're really doing was virtue signaling, basically. If I try to go look at the past, so to speak, and analyze what those people did, it gets much more easier to understand why they did the things they did, and why they argued in the way they did. If you look at it from the perspective that they say the things that they had to say to look good. So I don't think it's so much that they were opposed to free speech. They probably are in favor of free speech if it's their speech. And I think that it's more that they have to say those things at the time to look good. And maybe if it was a different era, or if free speech becomes the thing that they have to support, they will go to support it
Did you interact? Sorry. Did you interact with any anti-Gamergate people?
a lot.
How did those interactions go?
Not very well, so to speak. They usually they always defaulted to the accusations of harassment, sexism, and all of that stuff. I actually only met, I don't know how weird it is, what they're going to say, but I actually only met one person in my life that was against Gamergate and disagreed that gaming sites were horrible. Like, absolutely everyone I have ever argued with, if I ask them directly, okay, but do you think that games journalism has no issues, and it's like they are very, very good journalists and whatever, they say, oh, no, I think that they are absolute crap.
Did you ever change anyone's mind on Gamergate?
Mm, Not so much change. I think it worked when maybe I met someone who didn't know much about Gamergate, and if I told them our perspective first, they were kind of immunized for when they found out the other side, and the other side told them, oh, they are sexist, and they will say, wait, but I have told to them and they aren't. But if they were already in the camp of, no, Gamergate is bad, then it becomes very difficult.
Are you well? You've said you've only met one other person in real life who's anti-Gamergate. Are you friends with this person, or are you friends with any people online who are anti-Gamergate?
I am probably yeah, friends with a couple of people who are anti-Gamergate, but it's more like in real life, because in real life, obviously people don't act like in the internet. And if you have a disagreement about a specific topic with someone, it's just, okay, we will disagree about that and that's it.
How do you think conversations about Gamergate could have been more productive?
I'm not sure they could, because I mean, this is my perspective, obviously, but coming from the base of what I said, that I think that they were saying the things that they were saying because they have to virtue signal. It doesn't really matter what we could have said. I mean, they would have said the same things because they needed them to look good.
Do you have any thoughts on Not Your Shield?
Mm, it was interesting in the thing is that it did the work of showing that all of the accusations of you want women out of gaming, you want minorities out of gaming, and all of that were false. But I don't think that maybe that would have worked with people who were outside of Gamergate, but I don't think it worked against the people who were on the anti-Gamergate side because they really didn't care about it.
The Gamergate discussion was widely censored online. Why do you think that is?
In the like forums and all of the sorry, the threads and all of the stuff.
Yeah, on various websites like Reddit, 4chan. By Reddit, I mean like R Gaming, um, RPG.net, I believe, Reset Era, NeoGaf,
I,
MZ,
I think that's
GOG.com
part
after a couple of
of
years.
they needed to create this narrative that Gamergate was evil and all of that stuff. So obviously they couldn't let Gamergate people speak too much because I mean if we saw proof of the things that they do, obviously that's not gonna be good for gaming sites and all of that.
I want to move on to the harassment dash sexism portion of it, but first, I have a unique opportunity here. You were involved with the sad puppies controversy, is that right?
Oh yes,
Okay, so
that
I
was
don't
epic.
I don't know that much about the sad puppies controversy. I've thought about actually doing my next book after I finish this one on the sad puppies controversy, and writing a book about that because I want to explore it and learn more about it. And I feel it's an undercovered topic that got almost no attention at the time outside of the sci-fi world. So can you walk me through what happened during the sad puppies controversy exactly?
I wasn't really in like the sad puppies group, so I'm not like an expert on the topic, but I was involved in a part of it. That's kind of the part that I know. So basically, there's a group of people who noticed that in the Hugo Awards, the awards were given more by politics and identity than by actual quality. Like the quality of the works that were winning was bad, and it was always like the winner is a black woman and things like that. So they make kind of a campaign to. They made a list of authors that they were going to, because the way the system worked was like there was like a first batch of votes for the to promote people to be in the contest itself, and then there was the final votes. So in the first proposals were like open, you could propose anyone, and they made like a list of people and they say, okay, we're all going to vote for these people, and those people will be the finalists for the contest. And they put me in the list for best artist, for best independent artist, and they got all the votes. They got a lot of people into the contest. I'm not sure of how many people of this list ended up winning something. Uh, I know that when they got me the finalist for best artist. And when the Hugo Awards contacted me and they told me, okay, you are in the finals, you have to send us some material. So we saw it in our website uh, with the participants. And as in my work of art, I did a drawing of Vivian James with a sad puppy.
Yes, yes, I think I might have that saved on my hard drive somewhere. So the sad puppies people, they were accused in almost exactly the same way as the Gamergate people were of being misogynists and bad people. Why do you think that they were accused of being that, and do you think it was true?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't part of the groups. I don't know the people personally to say if surely they are or they are not. But I think it was like the same modus operandi that in Gamergate we are going to accuse these people of being everything under the sun. So people believe that they are evil in the things that they are doing. I think that mostly there were people who were like just the same as Gamergate. They were realizing that certain kind of politics were being used to inject. They were being injected in the contest, and they wanted to prove that it was true, basically.
And I gotta say, Kukuruyo, your artwork is very good. The one you did 2 days ago is pretty interesting. Mommy Reina from Tekken
Which
wants to dominate you. Do you comply? That
and
is some
I
good
have
artwork, I gotta say.
I saw the character and I fell in love with the character. And I have no idea. There are a lot of theories. I think that it's maybe Heihachi reincarnated. Maybe.
So you like to do all sorts of different artwork. You do comics, you do commissions, you do hentai, you do everything. Um, what's it like being a an artist and an artist who covers who makes artwork that is sometimes sexualized?
Mm, let's say that when you start doing hentai commissions, it's like making a training for the Olympics, but for the brain. Like you are not going to be affected by anything else in your life.
Now, I don't remember the details of this controversy too much, and I tried to find something on it, but I guess I think it was bullshit what happened to you. And I don't know if this was because of the sad puppies thing or because of the Gamergate thing, but I do recall there was an incident where a journalist tried to accuse you of being a nonce, someone who does bad things to kids. And he said this not because of any actions that you had taken, but he said it because apparently someone commissioned you to draw an anime character in a sexy way, and the character was like 17 years old in the anime, and he tried to claim that this made you a pedophile, a PDF file, I should say. Obviously, complete bullshit. I defended you at the time, and well, first off, do you want to talk about that incident? And I want to explain something about what I did during that time as well.
Well, I have been called that a lot of times, but I think that nowadays anyone who watches anime receives that accusation every day. But yeah, that was very crazy. That basically was it wasn't an anime character. It was Captain Marvel, and I did. Yeah, they commissioned me to do the drawing of Captain Marvel naked, and I didn't even know that character at the time. That's the new Captain Marvel, like the Kamala Khan. And I didn't even know the age, but it doesn't really matter because it's like an anime design that it's like sexy woman and that's it. And I released that, and yeah, people got angry, and several things happened. I'm trying to remember all of the things that happened because there were a lot. Like, for example, there was one guy, aside of all of those accusations, there was one guy who contacted Marvel and asked them to sue me for copyright infringement. And there was Yeah, at the time there was a thing that was called Project Wonderful. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do want to talk very, very, very briefly about this incident a little bit further because I had a role in it that the audience of the book might be interested in hearing. When this guy attacked you, this journalist or blogger attacked you, and made these horrible accusations against you with no evidence at all outside of this one commissioned artwork that you did, um, I defended you and I did a little bit of sleuthing. And it turns out that the guy who accused you of this had made a lot of really suspicious tweets in the past about the same topic, about PDF files. And
Mm.
I made a video at the time. I consider it to be a mistake, and I considered it a mistake then because I don't think I should have done this. But I made a video at the time where I went through all of this guy's tweets. They were, I think a couple years old. The tweets were where he was saying a lot of pedophilic things, and I did this basically because I'm like, well, this guy is attacking someone who's innocent. It's wrong. He shouldn't be doing that. And he has a lot of skeletons in his closet too. And then probably like a few hours later, I think, maybe it was like 12 hours later, I took down the video and I apologized to the blogger. Because even though what the blogger did was wrong, and he shouldn't have done that, I think that I probably shouldn't have done that either. And so I considered a mistake that I made during Gamergate, something I shouldn't have done. Um, Not that I lied about him or anything. I think everything in the video is factually accurate, but I just didn't like the idea of me being a person, the kind of person who would make personal attacks kind of against this journalist or blogger. Um, so I did take the video
Well,
down and I did
although it's
apologize to him. And I said, "Hey, look, I don't think what you did was right, but I shouldn't have made a video attacking you about this over several-year-old tweets. So I apologize." And that was basically the end of that controversy for me. But that is something I consider to be a mistake that I made during Gamergate, and I even mentioned this mistake when I made my post about this project because I want to be upfront about the mistakes that I made, and that I think was a mistake that I made.
mm. But it's like very it's very common that the more that someone accuses anime drawings of being a PDF file, the more that it's likely that they have very, very dark things in their past.
That does seem to be true, yes. All right, now we're moving
I
on.
have
Oh,
noticed
good.
a lot. Oh
Well,
no, I'm
actually,
just saying that. Hmm.
I want to give you obviously a chance to get the final word on this. Obviously, you were falsely accused of something, or you were accused of something it appears to be false, and I want your reputation, assuming you're innocent, which I think you are, to remain intact. So I'll give you the final word on this so that you can rebut the allegation that this journalist made. Though I can't seem to find his article anywhere anymore.
I actually didn't even remember this guy until you have said it, so I'm kinda remembering things now as I go. But yeah, I think I remember that he wrote something. Yeah, I mean, I don't really pay that much attention to these things because I'm so accustomed to like when you are a hentai artist, even a normal anime artist, like just drawing anime attracts a lot of people telling you that you like kiddies, and it's like it's an everyday thing for artists like me. So I don't even pay attention to it. Obviously, I don't. I don't like kiddies, and if you see my drawings, like half of my characters have boobs the size of their head. So
All right, now we're moving on to the harassment slash sexism portion. Why do you think some people claimed that Gamergate was about harassment or hating women?
mm, well, because that's what basically gamer was like. To say it, it was like a gift to them. Like it gave them a target that they could use to virtue signal. Like it was the new Hitler. Like there is no world war anymore, so they could just go like heroes fighting against the evil entity that is gamers who are fascists, and they could just say all of these things.
do you think that there was any truth to the idea that Gamergate people, by and large, hated women or supported harassing people?
No, if we, I mean, probably you are going to find some independent person who has some kind of mentality like that, because Gamergate was very big, has a lot of. I think it was. I saw a study that said that it was like 300,000 people or something like that. That's a lot of people. So yeah, you're going to find someone who thinks that way. But if we are talking about the vast majority of people in Gamergate, that has nothing to do with what Gamergate was about.
I'm not sure if you've seen these, but are you familiar with the studies on Gamergate and harassment, such as the Women Action Media study or the Newsweek slash Brandwatch study?
Yeah, I think I have seen them. It was the one that said. I'm trying to remember. I remember the number 0.66%.
0.66%, baby. There we go.
But I don't remember exactly. I remember the number. But I'm trying to remember. Yeah, 0.66. What?
Yeah, only 0.66% of people on the Gamergate auto blocker over, I think it was about like the 2 month period that they looked at this. Only 0.66% of those accounts had engaged in harassment or were believed to have engaged in harassment because of Twitter, um, using the Women Action Media reporting system on Twitter, which was integrated with Twitter, I believe, at the time because they had a partnership over this 2 month period.
Hmm. There are. I think that I have seen you talk about this in another interview, but there are a couple of studies that I think I haven't seen you mention. There was. I'm trying to remember. There was one study. I don't know if I will have the study or not, but there was one study about the tweets in the hashtag that showed that the vast majority of, I think it analyzed how many people had been banned for harassment or something like that, and it showed that Gamergate had less percentage of harassment than was the average on Twitter, and the anti-Gamergate side had like a lot of, they committed a lot of harassment, like a huge lot of harassment.
Okay, so yes, I am familiar with that study. I don't usually bring it up though. That study was conducted by the Nimbus. He's a Twitter user. It was later published in TechRaptor. The study was a news article was written about it. I I don't cite it because I think that the methodology wasn't the best. The methodology itself was fine, but the way they defined harassment I thought might be too broad. So what they defined as harassment was people making statements, like mean statements about individuals or about groups of people. And so I I think the study ended up categorizing every time somebody said like, "Oh, GamerGate is evil. They should all die." They considered that to be harassment, even though no individual GamerGate person was specifically targeted in that tweet. So it counted those as being harassment from anti-GamerGate. Um, I think that that's probably too broad of a definition of harassment.
I think I remember that, but there is one study that I have tried to find sometimes and I never find it, so it's probably not going to be useful. But I swear that I have seen it because it's where I took the 300,000 number. I remember that there was a group of anti-Gamergate that they did an analysis of the hashtag and what they wanted to do is to prove that Gamergate was about harassment, and the results say the absolute opposite. Like the harassment, they defined harassment in the same way as Twitter did, and they found out that Gamergate has very few harassment, and anti-Gamergate was a lot of harassment as well. But I know I tried to look for that study later and I didn't find it. So
Yeah, if you find it, let me know. That could be the Newsweek study because Newsweek commissioned Brandwatch to do a study as well, and then Newsweek lied about what was in the study It's actually like this really huge ethical violation that Newsweek did because they purposely misrepresented the data and tried to make it look like Gamergate was a harassment campaign. But in reality, it was only 1.26% of the tweets that they found were harassment. But they tried to claim in their article when they wrote about the study, they claimed, oh, well, Anita Sarkeesian and three other people received more mean messages than Nathan Grayson did, even though the overall number of mean messages was actually very low. Um, they clearly claim that that means that Gamergate's about harassing women. That's what Newsweek said. When even though the study showed that only 1.26% of the tweets were mean tweets directed at women.
Mm. That is an issue in general with talking about Gamergate today, that there's a lot of things that, like, I know for a fact that I have seen them because I have argued about it at the time and I have even read the articles. But if I didn't save the article, it's impossible to find that right now. And even if you save it, probably the link is broken. So
Well, that specific article on Newsweek is still up. But yeah, if you find that if there's a fourth study, by all means, please feel free to send it to me.
if I find it, I wish I would find it. It's like I know that I have read it because I know that that's where I took the number. They analyzed the numbers and they said Gamergate is 300,000 people. So I know I have read the article, but it's like, yeah, I didn't save it, so try to find that right now is like impossible.
What do you think of the Gamergate anti-harassment patrol?
Mm, I mean, kind of the same that I have said before. Like, it is a good initiative if what you are trying to do is show to people who are neutral that Gamergate is not about harassment. But if you are talking to people who have already decided that that's what they want to present Gamergate as, is not going to convince them of anything. But on itself is like an novel chaos, so to speak.
How important to you was it that so-called bad actors were condemned?
Mm. It depends on what we mean by bad actors, I guess.
I can't find a single example of a Gamergate confirmed Gamergate supporter um, having sent a death threat to anybody. That doesn't mean that one person out there might have done so, but I've not seen evidence of that. But I guess a good example of someone who did do something bad was Ethan Ralph when he went after he allowed a doxer to dox me, and then he also um, allowed a writer for his site, a third-party troll named Wild Goose, who he became friends with over time, and he allowed him to write an article attacking Lily Fang's friends and family, and then somebody, not necessarily him, but somebody created a fake GoFundMe to raise money to put Nicole's son's face on a tombstone to basically fuck with her and be an asshole to her after her friend just died.
Yeah, probably not that kind. Mm, yeah, I mean, it's a complicated issue because on one side it's like, yeah, when calling out these people is okay, nothing to do. But on the other side, it's also like I feel that sometimes the discussion about Gamergate was always that we have to be constantly be like, uh, yeah, saying those things like I don't support this and I support women, I support that. Like half of every discussion about Gamergate was us condemning things, and it's like, can we just say that we don't support the people doing like hardcore stupid stuff and now talk about the gaming in journalism or whatever?
Oh, actually, I guess I should qualify my statement. I did see evidence recently. One of the anti-Gamergate people actually created a list. They said, here are 20 bad people in Gamergate. Um, that list, I thought it was mostly bullshit. Most of the bad people in Gamergate on that list, the evidence that they provided at least, it was basically just like, oh, well, this celebrity talked about Gamergate, and if you look at the celebrity's history, in 1997 they were accused of sexual harassment at work. It's like, okay, well, like that's not Gamergate related, and this is like a celebrity who came in and talked about it, like a famous person. This isn't really, that was like most of their list, but there was one Twitter user who did say to some random person, it wasn't one of the three people who claimed that Gamergate was a harassment campaign, but they did say to one person, this might have been before Gamergate even happened. It was unrelated, I believe. They did say, "I fucking hate you. I hope you die," or "I'm gonna kill you," or something like that. And they shouldn't have said that. I don't know who this person was. They were like a minor Twitter person, I guess. But apparently they did say that, though it doesn't appear that it was Gamergate related. They just said this to someone else, and the person who was making the list was like, "Well, this person did threaten somebody in the past."
I mean, I'm sure that there are a number, not insignificant number of people who was in GamerGate who has done like death threats and all kind of fucked up stuff. But the thing that I think is kind of lost in these accusations of harassment or whatever is that basically any movement of any kind that has a size, especially on the internet, is going to generate harassment a lot. And in fact, if you look at, like, if Gamergate is a harassment campaign, feminism is like the biggest harassment campaign in history, because anytime that there is a talk about feminism, there is harassment from that side in huge levels. So it will be like, yeah, if you're gonna say that Gamergate is a harassment campaign because sometimes happens, it's like, okay, then feminism is a harassment campaign, Black Lives Matter is a harassment campaign, everything is a harassment campaign.
If you saw someone quote on you, or sorry, actually, I skipped a question. Sorry. Do you think most Gamergate people did a good job condemning harassment?
Most probably did. Yeah, because yeah, we had the harassment patrol, and I think there was a lot of whenever someone did something that was considered bad, it was like very very quickly they get kicked. Well, you can't be kicked of a hashtag, but you know what I mean. Like people instantly rejected them.
If you saw someone quote on your side unquote doing something you thought was bad, how would you handle the situation?
Hmm. But I usually tend to not argue much on the internet, but if I had to, I would probably say then I could cut it out a little or something. But I don't know, I feel kind of the same with that, what they said earlier, that it's like, I also don't feel that I have to be, every single time anyone does something, I have to be there to condemn it. It's like, yeah, I think I can say uh, doxing is bad and the threats are bad and leave it at that, not have to condemn every single time that happens.
I know you've already touched upon this. We don't have to go into it any further, but do you want to talk about the harassment that you received during Gamergate? Like the doxing attempt on you, or the successful doxing, I guess, of you.
Well, the doxing itself wasn't much. Like, yeah, I got people contacting me in the phone and say my real name and such, and I blocked them, and I never heard from them again. So nothing more happened. But yeah, I receive harassment every day, and anytime I upload a comic that has some kind of political content, or I make a comment about uh, things that happen in politics today or whatever, I get a lot of death threats and uh, people telling me to off myself and things like that. So it's like, I don't know. I think that when you reach a certain point, it's like you get insensitized to it. So for me, it's probably not anymore a big deal. But for people who is not like they are not spend much time on the internet, if you get suddenly 100 person telling you to throw off a bridge, it's probably going to affect you.
And I do just want to qualify too. I don't know if the person that the in the anti-Gamergate article, the list of 20 bad people in Gamergate, um, I don't even know if that person was a Gamergate supporter. The person who wrote the article claimed that they were, but I've not like done a deep dive into that. Maybe I should, just to make sure I know all the facts of that case. Um,
Yeah, that's a thing that I noticed a lot. That whenever there was people saying, "Oh, there is a list of 10 people who I don't know harassed Anita Sarkeesian or whatever," if you look at their Twitter feeds, there was nothing about Gamergate. There were just people.
Yeah, and Anita Sarkeesian herself even published a list of the people who were harassing her, which is good. I think that's great that she's providing evidence to back up her claim. Though, as you say, the people weren't GamerGate people. Out of like the 100 people or whatever it was who sent her mean messages, uh, only two of the people on that list had ever even used the hashtag. I believe it was two or three people, and they only used it that one time.
Mm.
So it
I
seems
think it
like it was
happened the
disingenuous to
same.
say that it was Gamergate people harassing her.
Didn't happen the same with Felicia Day. Like she did a book and she talked about the Gamergate in the book, and she like put like 10 examples of harassment, and most of the comments were like normal comments, like people saying I disagree with you and things like that. And the ones that were literally just like insults and things like that, if you check, were like this is not Gamergate people.
Yeah, I haven't. I actually own a copy of Felicia Day's book. I like a lot of the work that she's done. I disagree with her on the Gamergate stuff, though. I didn't. I haven't read it though. Actually, I think I might have like read that chapter at the time, just to see what was in it. But I haven't. I haven't read the full book. I can't comment. So I do want to
Yeah.
ask too.
Mm,
You say that you receive harassment almost every day.
mm,
One, who is engaging in this harassment? And two, do you have receipts on that?
I don't usually say them because I say it's like every day, but I have some. Let me check. Let's see. I think I saved some of them one time because I mentioned it on Twitter. Like I receive threats every day, and people said they told to me like some was received, and I said okay, and I let's check. I saved some of them. In my thousand of folders.
It's okay if it takes a minute because, again, I think for the book it's important.
Okay, I found a couple of images. What I don't know is what were they responding to. But yes, a lot of people telling me to throw me off a bridge.
You can post it in the Discord if you want,
Yeah,
in the
I'm
general
gonna
channel
go
or public research or whatever.
general channel. Let's,
And I can screen share it too, unless you don't want me to, because they're harassing messages to you, according to you.
yeah, I don't mind. I'm just checking because I have several of them, but I want to. I have the messages, but it's like, yeah, but what were they responding to? Why are they saying this?
Well, if they're saying "I want you to die, I'm gonna kill you," or well, I guess they even know "I want you to die." I don't know if that's like harassment technically. That's kind of an asshole move though. But if they're saying "I'm going to kill you," doesn't I don't really care what they were responding to. That's probably over the line. All right, so I'm gonna go
Well,
ahead.
it depends because if I am saying something on purpose to piss off people, I could understand. But see,
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and screen share this so the audience can see it. This is the harassment you say that you received. Some of it. Some of the harassment you say you've
yeah,
received.
yeah.
You should kill yourself now. Kill yourself, racist white uh, bitch. And you responded to them saying, "Thank you. We'll try later. Wish me luck." Another user says, "Kill yourself." And she says, "She's literally still a redhead, you racist snob." They also say, "Fucking die already." And then something else that I can't make out. It's unintelligible. Then leave black people alone, you crazy fuck. Oh no, both slow and stupid. Is that
I think that's when I made that joke. It was a silly joke, but it involved a black character or something like that, and people interpreted it as racist, but it was just a joke.
oh, you disgusting little piece of shit, and then they post a meme. I don't know if it's the kill yourself meme. It looks like it might be, but it's cropped a little bit. Um, we really don't give a fuck, unintelligible bitch. Someone else says die. Yeah, somebody reads to this is oh, sorry. So yeah, somebody needs to beat your ass for this. Racism is never funny. Okay. So that probably is harassment. They're calling for people to beat your ass. That's not appropriate at all. I would definitely call that to be harassment. Um, we get the quote joke unquote unless there's some additional context that I'm missing from that tweet. Like maybe he's like very clearly joking with you or something, but I that doesn't appear to be the case from what I can immediately see. Um,
Mm.
then someone else says, "We get the quote joke unquote, you waste of sperm. How about what if you should kill yourself now?" Someone else says, oh no fucking wonder. They're from Espanol, LMAO, inbred ass little racist rat." Now that seems like it's a racist comment against Spanish people.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
weird
funny
that
that
he's a
they. It's not weird. They always do it. Like whenever I make a joke or people attack me or whatever, and they try to accuse me of being a racist, they always default to being a racist against Spanish people. And also because I have the trans flag, a lot of times people come to me to say, "Oh, you are racist or sexist or whatever." Fucking tranny, things like that.
someone else says KYS, meaning kill yourself. Another person says step on a Lego. The Lego thing's pretty mild, I
Yeah,
feel. That's probably a
that's
joke.
I don't
Uh,
know. That's the worst one. Eh?
yeah. Someone else says this is the French hate and this is why the French hate the Spanish. Another person says okay, cracker. Another person says fucking dumbass and you're a fucking idiot. And someone else says die Spaniard. Okay, maybe that's harassment. I don't know. It could potentially be read that way. Um, and then another person says kill yourself. So this is just a small sample, you said, of the messages you've received.
That is message in one, not even a day. It's just a few hours of a day because I mentioned on Twitter that I got death threats constantly, and someone told me prove it, and I say okay, I'm going to screenshot a few hours of my feed.
So this um, the person here who says someone needs to beat your ass, is that person a confirmed anti-Gamergate person, or do we know? I can't make out their name too well in the screenshot.
Right now, I don't have much idea of, but I'm finding some that probably are anti-Gamergate because they're talking about. Let's see.
I don't know if I spelled the name right. I'm going to try and pull up their profile and see if I can. Oh, they got
No,
suspended. Okay. Well, I can maybe
I'm,
find
I'm going
archives and see if
to.
they were anti-GG, but um, it's probably going to be extraordinarily
I,
difficult to find.
I'm uploading another one that has like the hashtag, so I guess we were talking about Gamergate.
Well, oh, what did they say?
Oh, I have uploaded it in the general.
I'm just checking archive.org and archive.is to see if there's archives of their profile right away.
It's like
Unfortunately,
two person. There's the Gamergate hashtag, and then one is saying, "I like how Lilian has a Nazi symbol in her hair. It's fitting," and the other is saying, "I'm not saying you should kill yourself, but it totally wouldn't mind if you fell off a bridge somewhere."
to your knowledge, Kukuruyo, and again, if somebody wants to sleuth around and see if, unfortunately, archives of their exact profile don't exist, but if somebody could find archives and sleuth around and see archives of individual tweets that they made, that would be really difficult, but it might be worth checking. Unfortunately, I can't find anything right away proving that this person was an anti-gamergater. Do you, to your knowledge, are any of these specific individuals or any other individuals confirmed anti-gamergate people?
I have no idea because these are things that happen over time. I mean, I'm guessing that in the image that I have shown right now, if we were in the GamerGate hashtag, I guess but they probably were, but I have no idea.
Okay. Again, I'm not doubting that I'm not doubting your story, but obviously, I just want to make sure that we're factually accurate for the book. And if these
Mm.
were confirmed anti-Gamergate people, I think that would be an interesting conversation to explore.
It will be kind of very hard to prove because you can, for GamerGate people, you can more or less say that if they wrote in the GamerGate hashtag in favor of GamerGate, they were GamerGaters. But for an anti-GamerGate, they might as well not have any comment on the hashtag.
Yeah, I guess the kind of evidence I would see is, well, there's a few different ones. One, if they were posting on Ghazi or the GG debate subreddits and they had an anti-Gamergate flair or were making anti-Gamergate posts, that's one. Those are two types of evidence I would accept. Another type of evidence I would accept is if they were repeatedly, or even just probably on one occasion, probably be fine, making anti-Gamergate comments. That probably would be enough, unless it was like an obvious troll or something like that. And then I guess a third piece of evidence too would be if they used like the um, like if they use like the Stop Gamergate hashtag or the Gamergate is hate hashtag or something like that. Stop Gamergate 2014 was another one that they used for a while. That would I accept. Or I guess I'd probably maybe accept, depending on the context, if they were like considered a member of like the inner circle of one of the main anti-Gamergate people. Like if they were in the Crash Override Network chat logs or the Zack Attack chat logs or something like that, then I'd probably feel comfortable. Or the Gamer Ghazi IRC channel. I would accept those as being evidence that they're anti-Gamergate. Possibly some other things too, like if they were posting on Reset Era attacking Gamergate on a regular basis or something, that might also be acceptable. So any sort of evidence like that regarding any of these individuals or other individuals, I would say, okay, this is a confirmed anti-Gamergate person, or there's a high likelihood that they are at least.
For me, it's more relevant to more than to try to say if anti-Gamergate generated more or less harassment. It's to say that harassment is like a thing that happens on the internet. So to say, uh, we have found some people, like we have 20 examples of people from Gamergate committing harassment. It's like, okay, and I have a screenshot of 20 people in an hour telling me two of myself. And they are simply people on the internet because this happens on the internet. Muted or something.
Oh, sorry. I was muted. Yes. I was going to ask. Some of these, two of these, are from the year 2022. It looks like. To your knowledge, were any of these specific messages sent, quote unquote, during Gamergate? Let's say between like 2014 to 2018 or so.
The thing is that I don't remember exactly what. Well, it's just a screenshot that I have found in a folder that I have.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly where they come from, basically.
Okay.
The
What?
other one that I have shown has the hashtag, so I guess that's from Gamergate era.
Oh, so there was one that was on the Gamergate hashtag use, I guess. Do you have that one, or did you post it already?
The other I have
Oh, you
uploaded
did.
it in
Okay.
the.
Let's go ahead and look through this real quick. I know it's kind of boring content maybe, but I feel like it's important research that needs to be done. All right. So why is your page so slow? Someone says. This is, I guess, in a chain. This isn't like that person's harassing you or anything. Someone else says, I like how Lillian has a Nazi symbol in her hair. It seems really fitting. They're making fun of, I guess, the anti-Gamergate artwork. Um, Another person says, I'm not saying you should kill yourself, but I totally wouldn't mind if you fell off a bridge somewhere. Okay, so I don't know if I'd call that harassment technically. It's obviously asshole behavior, and that does appear, I guess, to probably be related to Gamergate. Like they were probably saying that in response to your Gamergate
I
artwork, it
mean,
looks like.
if they are only writing one time, they probably wouldn't consider harassment either. But it's like, I mean, we were speaking about the death threats and all that stuff, so I mentioned it that.
Okay, well, hey, again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm doubting the stuff that you were receiving at all. I just obviously, as a journalist and a historian, I have to be very careful with the facts that I make, the claims that I make, and I want to make sure that I'm very accurate. So thank you for showing me the evidence that you have.
I think I had more. Uh, I think I had screenshots of when the whole CometCon thing happened, and there were a lot of people at that time telling me hardcore things. But I'm trying to find them, and I don't know if maybe they are deleted or something because
Yeah,
I don't find them.
do you want me to wait a minute while you look for that, or would you want me to ask you some extra questions while you do that? I don't know
No,
if you want to multitask or.
ask more questions because
Okay.
I really there are not much places I can look, and I probably don't have the image anymore.
All right. Why do you think the media largely didn't cover harassment against Gamergate supporters?
So that was against the narrative that the GamerGate was were the ones doing the harassment.
Do you have any thoughts on Zack attack?
What was that?
Remember when some of the anti-Gamergate people tried to dox Mombot?
I remember something, but wasn't it that she made an account or something? There
So
was a story there that
So I learned about this recently. So we don't know, I don't know at least, I don't personally know at least what the motivations of the anti-Gamergate people were. Um, but there's three possible motivations that are worth exploring. One of which is that she's a Gamergate person who is very popular. They don't like Gamergate people. Another one is that she did say that she wrote an article criticizing Robert Marmelejo, who was a big anti-Gamergate figure and a member of Zoe Quinn's inner circle with the Crash Override Network. She made an article criticizing him, or not even criticizing him, more like covering as a journalist a story involving him. And I think she even said too that she was wondering if the anti-Gamergate people would be more likely to harass her because of this article she'd written. And then there's also a third thing too, which is that a couple of weeks prior to them trying to dox her, she got involved with some personal drama with one of the anti-Gamergate people, an individual named 9volt. And as part of this drama, she tweeted out a fake DM from 9volt, where 9volt, not him actually, but in the fake DM, 9volt asked her for feet pictures. But she did a few hours after that tweet come out and say, "I'm just fucking around. It's not a real DM. I just wanted to troll 9volt." So again, obviously, I don't support people making fake DMs about other people and accusing them of sexually harassing them when it's a fake DM. Um, but she did come out and say pretty quickly after she made the tweet that it was just a joke. So again, I don't think it's like the world's biggest thing, but apparently some of the anti-Gamergate people were upset about this joke that she made, and they wanted to get her.
so they doxed her or something.
They
I
tried
don't
to,
remember
but
the last
it
story.
was they tried to, but there's a whole lot more to the story. It's way more complicated. Like they ended up like Mombot and Rudderhouse infiltrated the anti-Gamergate community. He pretended to be a social justice warrior, gained their trust over time, and they brought him into their inner circle. And when they did that, he leaked their DMs or their chat logs, in which he exposed them as trying to dox her.
Was that maybe I'm mixing things, but weren't a dogs not a dogs like a leak of that chat with Zoe Quinn and people like that, and in the chats they admitted that they were making up the harassment or something like that.
So, I don't know about that specific claim. That was a separate leak, though. That wasn't the Zack attack leaks. That was the con leaks, the Crash Override Network leaks. I don't know if she specifically said that. I haven't gone through all of the leaks, though, the logs, so I can't attest, confirm, or deny that claim.
It's just something that I think I remember happened, but there's so much fucking shit that happened.
Though it should be pointed out that Randy Harper, who was a part of Zoe Quinn's inner circle and supposedly created her own anti-harassment organization, quote unquote, that she did end up, it appears, it's in the Airplay documentary, She did appear to support doxing people, and did so in the Crash Override Network leaks. That's from the documentary, though. I've not looked at the evidence of that specifically, except for what's presented in the documentary.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, they did that kind of thing a lot, so I
Yeah.
believe that she was in favor of it.
And she also, Randy Harper too, I believe, she did end up advocating for blacklisting people, and she ended up blacklisting everyone who was a member of the GamerGate, one of the GamerGate Facebook groups that existed at the time, and encouraged an industry blacklist of these people, which obviously is not appropriate at all.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you do you have any thoughts on the term sea lioning?
Mm. I mean, sea lion can be a little annoying, not gonna lie, but I think the issue I have with the term is that there was this pretension that it was something that Gamergate did when it's something that everyone does.
What do you think of the burgers and fries stuff?
Uh, I think that's something I didn't pay much attention to it. But it was like a chat or a forum or something like that
It was
to
IRC
attack
chat
Soy
room.
Queen. Where they attacked Soy Queen or something like that.
Not really. That's how it's like framed by the anti-Gamergate people, but I don't think that's really an accurate summation. It's more like people wanted to talk about the drama involving the recent scandals. This was like before Gamergate even happened, became Gamergate
Mm,
at least, or whatever you want to call it that. Um, and they were talking about the drama. One person in that chat room did say something that could be perceived as being inappropriate. He said, and it appears like it might have been a joke, but someone says, with all of, like these, so one person replied, said in the chat room, with all of this drama about Zoe, what if she ends up killing herself? And then this user named the other gentleman, he said well then we get to troll hashtag remember Zoe. But that could have been a joke
mm.
that could be seen as inappropriate though.
The, the thing for me is that I believe that there would have been people like saying like brutal things about Soy Queen, but the thing is that there is this idea that people say these things because she's a woman and we hate women or whatever. But the way I see it is that person has a lot of stuff that she has done. Like she's a very evil person if you look at the things that she has done. And I think it's pretty normal that when the Zoe post came out, a lot of people hated her already. And yes, they will say horrible things about her because she's a horrible person, basically.
Well, there's actually a very interesting journalistic angle of this story I'm going to be covering next Saturday, about 7 days from now. I'm interviewing I'm interviewing someone quite interesting. Um, I'm interviewing Cole Nasrallah. Do you remember her?
Paul Nasrallah.
She went by a different name
Mm,
back then, so I understand if not. She wasn't a Gamergate supporter, but she posted on the Gamergate hashtag on Facebook once and made a very long post, actually like a couple times. I think she made like 3 posts over the course of 2 years. Um, but she's a person who ended up having a run-in with Miss Quinn, uh, a business deal that went very, very bad, and Quinn allegedly made false accusations against her to try and tar her reputation, as well as cost her a lot of money. Um, and I'm interviewing this person. This is all public information. This person made these posts on Facebook publicly, but nobody talked about it at the time. Really, it got almost virtually no press coverage. She made the first post in October 2014, and she provides some receipts for the claims that she's making in it. And the media didn't cover it. And as far as I can tell, I don't know if even a single YouTuber covered it. It seems like it went completely under the radar. Um, but I'm interviewing her about her story with Zoe Quinn, and it's going to be a very interesting discussion, I imagine.
I don't know if I know anything about that story, honestly.
Yeah, I can
I
send
know
you
that
some
she
archives
has
of her posts.
I know that she has she did the whole Like she destroyed this Mountain Dew game dev event or something like that.
The Polaris Game
But I don't
Jam.
know.
She's involved with the
Yeah, I
controversy
don't know if
involving
that's.
them. She was also involved in another controversy involving the fine young capitalists, and another
Mm,
controversy involving the Wizard Chan community, where she accused them of harassing her, though they deny that allegation. And one of the news stories that wrote about Wizard Chan's alleged harassment later walked back those claims and said that they had no evidence that they actually engaged in any harassment as far as they were
mm.
aware or presented.
I
So,
I know that I saw a video. I don't know if this will be possible to find, but I saw an interview to the. I think it was an interview to the Young Fine Capitalists, but there was another person, and I think it was in the Honey Badgers channel. And this person was like an expert on Wizard Chan, and they say that from the raid that Zoe Quinn and her people did to Wizard Chan, several people committed seppuku. I don't know how much validity is to that. Maybe I could try to find the video, but this is a video of like 10 years ago.
yeah, I would be interested in that. I probably should have reached out to the Wizard Chan webmaster or someone like that and probably try to interview them as well. Um, there's also the whole incident with her and Alex Holoka, where
Mm,
Alex Holoka was her roommate who made some claims about her, and then she accused him. I don't know if it was true or not. He believed it was a false allegation that he had sexually harassed her and he killed himself shortly thereafter. So it does seem like she has a bit of a sordid history, and she's also a
mm,
member of the Something Awful community, where she posted on Hell Dump and talks publicly about how she misses Hell Dump and that she has a quote crippling Hell Dump addiction. Hell Dump was allegedly a doxing board on Something Awful, though I think it was slightly more nuanced than just being a doxing board. And then she also went after Tim Saray, a GamerGate supporter, and tried to destroy his career allegedly by making false accusations against him.
Yeah, that's what I say, that when people bring up the people in GamerGate or the conspiracy attack Joy Queen, I'm like, I'm sure that happened because I think it's normal that people hate her.
Now, obviously, even if she's a terrible person, I don't support anybody sending death threats or doxing people. I just want to say
Mm.
that probably doesn't need to be said. It's pretty obvious I don't support that, but just so we're all clear, even if she's like the worst
Yeah,
human
that's
being on earth. I mean, I guess like if you're Hitler, I guess like maybe stopping them through any means necessary is okay, but like for like a person who's just like an asshole who harasses people on the internet, like I don't know, like that's a more nuanced conversation. But I obviously don't support harassing people. Anyway, that's
yeah, but that's the kind of thing that what I mentioned earlier. That I mean, I just say that I don't want people to be dogs and things like that. Overall, I don't have to repeat it like when I talk about Soy Queen or whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't support those things happening to her, but I can also mention that she's a horrible person.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% within the bounds of free speech. Anyway, well, actually, I guess I'll ask since we're talking about this, is there anything else you want to say about Zoe Quinn or the Burgers and Fries IRC chat room?
Mm, well, I don't know much about the channel itself, so yeah. My only comment is that I think that is probably true that there were harassment for her, but I don't think it was because she's a woman or because she's a woman developer. It's because she was a horrible person.
Uh, do you have any thoughts on GG Revolt?
Mm, that was one of the infightings in Gamergate, right? I didn't pay much attention to the infighting, to be honest.
Uh, can you define what you think harassment is?
I think that I could define it as either when it's like constant, well, not constant, but like repetitive, so to speak, unwelcome the interaction, like you have a person who is constantly uh, telling you stuff while you clearly don't want that person to be there telling you insults or whatever. And I don't know if we will consider harassment to be single instance of something very strong, like telling you to off yourself, something like that. But I'm not so sure about that. But repetitive interaction with someone, like you are responding to all of their tweets, telling them you are horrible, you are stupid, or whatever, that's harassment.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm going after Zoe Quinn, but I just forgot to mention there were a couple of other incidents involving her. Well, one of which was the Cole and Ezreal situation, which tune in next Saturday. That's going to be an interesting discussion. Um, but the two other incidents were, is that she raised money or was trying to raise money. I don't know if anyone donated to run her own Rebel Game Jam after the Polaris Game Jam failed, and there's allegations that she tried to sabotage the Polaris Game Jam on purpose, and then she created her own organization, the Rebel Game Jam. But despite asking for money for this, it never happened. And then also, she also asked money for people to give her money because she quote got mugged unquote and needed them to give her money. And then she also took money for a Kickstarter that people did, and the Kickstarter, uh, well, it's been several years since the game was supposed to have come out, and it doesn't appear that their game is coming out. So you
Mm.
could say that maybe she scammed people, but if you want to be like super generous, you could maybe frame it a certain way and say that like she's just incompetent and that she failed to live up to her goals. Which Sargon did too, by the way. Sargon, when he took money for Neuromancer, he didn't complete that game either.
Yeah, but I think that he gave
Necromancer.
back the money, isn't it?
He offered refunds, I think, to people who asked for it, not to everyone necessarily. But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, they're not too well informed about that. I think I hear that he gave back the money, but I don't know.
What do you think about how the media covered Gamergate?
Um, Very badly. I mean, I think they just copy pasted. They simply went to whatever the big gaming sites said and copy pasted that, and that's it. They didn't do anything else.
Yeah, I realized recently. I was asked on Wick TV when he interviewed me about the book. He asked me, "Well, point out an example of where specifically you think the media got something wrong." And I realized I did have an example I gave him, but I don't think it was the best example that I gave him. It was an example of them getting it wrong or well being biased. But I realized I probably should read some of those anti-Gamergate articles again. It's been a long time. That way I can have that at the ready because Stardust is interviewing me tomorrow, and I don't know if she's gonna bring ask me the same question or not. If she saw how I kind of fumbled a little bit with that question on a Wix show, she might try and bring it up. So I got to do some research and read. I got a couple articles I plan on reading. I guess I'll have to do it today, so that I'm ready to
I
answer that question
know,
better in the future.
I know. I have read articles though from normal media that say the same as the games journalist. That is, actually in Spain there was two articles that were very funny uh, that claimed that nobody even knows why they say this because even anti-gamer was like, "What the fuck are you saying?" But they basically, in one article, they say that GamerGate was composed of members of the Spanish Falange, which is the extreme right party that supports dictator Franco.
That's a wild claim. Um,
Yeah.
if you were going to cover this, is you might be like the first. I think I might have asked this informally a couple times with people. I think I did with one person at least, but I'm adding it as an official question moving forward, even though there's not that many interviews left. And this question is: if you were going to cover GamerGate as an act of journalism, how would you have done it?
Hmm. Well, I guess that the first thing will be to see what the fuck is about. So we'll have to, uh, assuming that I know absolutely nothing about GamerGate, I will have to ask where I could find information and see if that information is way too biased to trust it alone, I guess. I mean, I will do basically what I did, because what I mentioned at the beginning, I saw this guy saying, "Oh, the gamers are horrible," and I had no idea. And I say, "Okay, I'm going to check," and I checked the I think it was the conspiracy hashtag back then, but I'm not so sure. But I basically checked the conversations on Twitter, and I saw people saying things in both sides, and I came to my own conclusion. So I think I will do basically the same thing, like to check what people are saying.
Are there any journalists you think did a good job covering Gamergate?
Depends, because there are journalists who told our side, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if they are telling only our side is good journalists. They are maybe doing the same issue but in reverse. But Oliver Campbell, for example, I like was a. I don't know if he was still a game journalist when he wrote about GamerGate or he had left, but he was a game journalist at some point. I don't remember. I'm not so sure. I don't know if you know the guy.
I know Oliver Campbell. I wasn't familiar with his specific articles though.
Yeah, he wrote some articles that what I'm struggling to remember is if he wrote the articles being against journalists and then he left, or when Gamergate started, he already had left being against journalists. But he was against journalists and he wrote articles agreeing with Gamergate because he said that being against journalists, he has seen that he said that the majority of game journalists were failed journalists, like they wanted to work for the Guardian and things like that, but they hadn't make it, and they hated video games. And because the only place they found a job is in game journalism, but they hated video games. That's what he said.
Did anyone, obviously you were a major artist associated with Gamergate. You've made a lot of Gamergate related artwork. Did anybody in the media reach out to you to interview you or discuss the movement?
Yes, and it's a very funny story. Basically, there was a person from a journal, Spanish journal. I think it was The Voice of Galicia. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was the journal. And they contacted me. They wrote an article against Gamergate, and then they contacted me to do an interview about Gamergate. And I said, okay, makes sense because we weren't many people in Gamergate in Spain at the time, and I was probably because of my dragons, I was the most known, so to speak. But then she told me, no, 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 I don't want to interview you. We need to interview a woman. And I was like, okay, like we, out of the bat with the identitarian bullshit, but okay, I'm going to look for a woman. And I asked for someone, I searched for one of the many women in Gamergate, and I gave her several names. And he went, no, 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 but she has to be a woman, and also she has to speak Spanish. And I was like, okay, you could translate, but okay. I searched for, I may even remember the name of, well, it doesn't matter, but a person from Gamergate who is from Latin America. And I gave her the name, and he told me, no, 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 but she has to be a woman, she has to speak Spanish, and also she has to live in Spain. I don't know why, but and I also searched for a person who fit the criteria. And she finally accepted to do the interview with this person, not with me at all. And when this person said on Twitter that she was going to be interviewed about Gamergate, the anti-Gamergate side in Spain found out and they harassed her until she said, I'm not going to do the interview anymore. And that was it. That was the end of the interview.
Wow, that sounds really bad. It sounds like that's actually like not just because of the harassment aspect, though that it sounds like a journalist was intimidated into silence by these harassers. That sounds like a
So
really big claim. That could be very much worth investigating further. Do you happen to have any additional information you can send me? Not necessarily right now about this
the
incident.
one the one who said that wasn't going to do the interview was the girl that was going to be interviewed.
Okay, because she got harassed. Okay, but still,
Yes.
though, they were silencing a source. Um, yeah, but I would love to have more information on that. That could be most interesting. Doesn't have to be right
I'm
now, though.
going to. Well, I can check my emails and see. Let me check. The problem is that I tend to delete my emails, so that's going to be an issue because I don't have space in email. Let me check.
Because you obviously, if there's proof that people were harassing people who were sources for stories and were being interviewed for stories, and that's part of the reason why Gamergate was misrepresented by the media, that's obviously a huge deal.
In any case, even if I find the emails, the emails is not going to be the harassment that happened on Twitter to this girl.
Well, yeah, if you have any evidence at all of the harassment that happened at all, I would love to see it. Doesn't have to be right now, though. We can move on, or we can wait a minute if you think you can pull it up quickly.
I'm, I think I deleted it, but I'm finding out in my emails that I have still saved an email that Brianna Wu sent me.
Oh, what's that? Well, sorry, it's a private email. You probably shouldn't say, right? Unless you want it public.
I can comment more or less it wasn't much. It basically she told me that even if she disagreed with me in the topics that my comics had, that she liked the comics.
Oh,
And
well, okay.
that's
Well, that's
basically it. We had like a couple of emails, but they didn't say anything relevant.
okay. Well, hey, that's also information that shows that Brianna Wu's a real human being who sometimes has friendly relations with people who she disagrees with. That's great. That's good.
I'm not
She also
finding
considers Hatman a friend, by the way.
Ackman.
The
Ackman. Who's Ackman?
Tachyon Action lead moderator.
Oh, mm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Brianna has moments in which she's friendly, like this email and such, but I think that she's a very manipulative person. That all of these interviews that people are doing to her now, saying like, "Oh, she has changed her views." I have seen them, and I don't think she has changed anything.
I will say I've interacted with her. I'm not going to say what the DMs were. She was cordial though. I will say that. And I don't. I've seen some of these interviews as well. I don't think she's changed as much as people would like to think. If you look at like the claims that she actually makes in the interviews, they're very sweeping claims against the Gamergate people. But she does caveat it occasionally, and she does say things like, "Well, I don't think they were all like that, just most of them." But I don't think it was
But
most of them.
the way that I see it, and obviously have absolutely no proof of any of this, but it's basically that she has become persona non grata in the group that she was and is trying to expand her horizons. So she's trying to like pretend that she has changed her views. And the interviews that I have seen, she uses a lot of manipulative language. Such like she talks to people that they are a little hostile to her, and she says things in a way that makes her look friendly, and the people change their tune talking to her, and I think that she's manipulating them.
But I will say this, to my knowledge, Brianna Wu has not tried to sabotage my project, even though I politely reached out to her for comment. Nor has she like said bad things about me in public, to my knowledge. I don't follow her on Twitter though. Um, but I don't think she said bad things about me in public. Whereas one of the other anti-Gamergate people has Leigh Alexander. I reached out to her politely asking her to do an interview with me, and she leaked the email to her followers on Twitter, her 122,000 followers, revealing the private correspondence. Now, in there was also my full name and email address, but I do consider those two things to be public information, so I don't consider her to have doxed me because I think that those are both public information. Um, but I don't know why she decided to do this and decided to criticize me by leaking the email and by making a big deal out of how I was interviewing people on both sides. She didn't think I should have done that apparently. She wanted me to only interview the anti-Gamergate people, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird bug that person.
Yeah. Well, Brianna Wu didn't do that to me, as far as I'm aware. So props to her for at least being a professional. Did you reach out to any journalists or media outlets who wrote articles about Gamergate to correct misinformation?
Yes, and they didn't respond or change anything, but yes, I did.
Are there any specific articles or videos you want to discuss? I know you brought one up earlier, but if you have any others.
Mm, articles not to discuss. Mm, I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's an article, but I have a story of something Gamergate related, so to speak, that happened in Spain. If you want stories that haven't heard about Gamergate.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it if it's something that's like really interesting and would add journalistic value to the project or historical value to the project. I would be open to it.
I don't know if it's journalistic value. It's more that one of those things that in Spain Gamergate got accused of, and it was kind of bullshit, like most of the things. So I don't know if it will add anything or not.
Hey, no, go ahead, please.
There was in Spain, there was a story. There was kind of complicated to explain. So they did an event in Spain a few years ago that was called Gaming Ladies, and it was an event, a video game event, only for women. Now the thing is that well, Spain is, as I say, a super woke country, but technically by law you can't do that. Like you can do events that are just for one gender. And obviously, this law, when they approve it, they they did it so you couldn't create events only for men. They didn't realize that it could apply to women as well. And they did this event, and the first time that they did it, basically, I think it was like 15 people or something. Like the event has almost no people. And the next year, they tried to do it again, and they got like a couple of people making jokes. They announced the event, they got a couple of people doing like jokes about it, and they suddenly went, "Oh, we are canceling the event because we are being harassed." And I personally checked that this was false because the instant that they saw the announcement, I went to their social media and there was no harassment at all. But this announcement basically made it viral, it became super viral. And then the news basically in Spain was that gamers, and specifically Gamergate, because it was more or less at the time that Gamergate was active, had made an event to be cancelled. And then they got like they got advertisers or something, and they put the event up again. And there was a lot of these kind of things that there's a lot of things happening at once. Like there was, for example, like they claimed, yeah, there was a point in which they claimed that because people told them there was no harassment at all, because we have checked. And what they claimed was that the harassment was that there is a forum in Spain that is basically Spanish 4chan that you need an invitation to go in. And if you don't have an invitation, you can read. And apparently, a group of people in that forum made a thread making jokes about the event. And they made a joke saying, "Oh, if it's an event only for women, we can put some wigs and say that we are trans." But if you read the comments, it's very obviously a joke. And they say that the fact that these people have written that joke in a private forum that no one has access to except with a code means that the event was being harassed, and that's why the event was cancelled.
Did the media's coverage of Gamergate increase? Oh, so they blamed Gamergate for that, you said?
Yeah, they blame gamers in general, and also because it was more or less the era in which Gamergate was active, there was also accusation in some media that Gamergate was behind it.
And that's what the media claimed, yes?
Mm. Some media, not all, but I mean, some media say that was because of Gamergate, others gamers, others sexist people in general.
Okay. Did the media's coverage of Gamergate increase or decrease your trust in the media?
I didn't have much to begin with, but I guess it decreased it even more.
If a journalist who got Gamergate wrong in your view is reading this now, what do you want them to reconsider?
I mean, assuming that they are not the kind of journalists who did it because they wanted to virtue signal, because I don't think those can be convinced of absolutely anything. There is nothing to convince if you don't disagree in the first place. But if they got it wrong, I mean, at this point, I don't know what you could do because you're not going to write a pro GamerGate article nowadays.
Well, if they got
I don't know.
specific facts wrong, I think they probably do have an obligation to try and correct that misinformation. At least if it's, I mean, yeah, they probably do have an obligation to try and correct that misinformation to
But,
some extent.
but I think you will have to probably be in a very strong position in wherever you are working to do a pro GamerGate article today saying, "Oh, we were wrong,"
Well, I
and
don't want them to make a
GamerGate
pro
was right.
Gamergate article. I just want them to be honest.
Mm. I think it's hard because I don't think that anyone will approve the article. But yes, if they could check the other side, and for me, if they just present both sides, it's okay enough. So if they could do that, that will be cool. I just don't think that any journal will allow them to do that.
What do you think the media can learn from how they covered Gamergate?
Well, they learn it a lot. They learn how to create this kind of narratives to sell people whatever they
No,
wanted,
no,
and
sorry.
that's
What
what they
can
don't
they
know.
learn, right? If they want to do better in the future.
Mm. Don't copy paste each other. Like don't do a Wikipedia. Don't just copy paste everything that other journals say without checking, because there are a lot of, I think it's called cytogenesis or something like that, when journals just copy paste the other and then copy paste the other and then copy paste the other, and you look any article and there's nowhere where the proof of anything they say is. It's just reference to reference to reference to reference. Like, maybe don't do that.
Have you seen the Gamergate Wikipedia article?
Yes, much to my dismay.
Is the Spanish
The
one better?
the
Oh, good.
funnily enough, at the beginning, the GamerGate article in Spain was actually good. Was like both sides. They just explained what happened, and they did nothing else. But then a couple of years later, they deleted it entirely and did just a translation of the English one.
Oh, wow. Would you like to see, quote, the narrative, unquote, on Gamergate change in your lifetime?
I mean, it will be cool to feel vindicated, although I think we are vindicated enough in that we were right. But I think if I don't necessarily need to be like people recognizing that what was said about Gamergate was wrong. I more need people to act about how things are now and stop things from being worse and worse and getting worse. Like, if we stop things from going worse, I'm fine with that, even if people completely forget about Gamergate or think we're the evil ones.
Has your conscious experience as a human been made worse to any degree because of the negative narrative about Gamergate?
My conscious experience of a human. I don't know. I mean, due to that, I have received a lot of harassment continuously, but I think that there is a point which I have become insensitized to it. So I don't know what to say. Is it bad that I am insensitized to it? Then maybe yes. I don't know.
And they did get your event banned.
Well, yes, but that was. I mean, I don't consider that a debate in a convention being cancelled is that much of a big deal. I think that it's worse that, for example, what they did do to me that it hurts a little was that there was a site a few years ago that was for webcomics, and what you did was you had your webcomic there, and you had advertising, and you could earn money with advertising. And when the whole Captain Marvel thing happened, they had a lot of people from like the activists. I don't know how many anti-gamers were in there, but it was more or less the same era and the same group of people. So I guess there were people from there, but they basically campaigned to cancel me, and the site literally changed the rules to be able to ban me because I didn't break any of the rules. So they made new rules to be able to ban me, and
And
they banned
this,
me, so I lose income that I had every month.
so this financially impacted you in a very negative way because of your support for Gamergate and the people who attacked you for it.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, don't know exactly how many people of them were anti-Gamergate, so I can't say for sure. But by the time by the things that happened, I can guess that was the case. And yeah, I lost income because of that. Probably more things happened, but I don't think that I don't know if enough time have passed that I could get a job in a company right now. Like if I get to a job in a company as an artist, probably someone will at some point send them some tweets from mine saying, "Oh, he's pro Gamergate," and they will kick me out. Probably.
All right, we're moving into light items. What's your favorite video game?
Sí, no Saga.
Oh, what was it? Sorry.
Sí, no Saga.
I'm not familiar with that one. What's it about?
You should know it. The best game of all times. It's a game from, Xenoblade?
I've heard of it. I've not played it.
Don't do it. It's very bad. Uh, the same company that did that game, like Xenoblade is kind of a spiritual successor, so to speak, in a way, to Xenosaga. And this was made in the 2000, very early 2000s, and it came at the same time that Final Fantasy X, because in Japan they were like the two big RPGs, Final Fantasy X and kind of a futuristic, how to say it? Yes, it's a space opera story, so to speak, that has a lot of.
Oh, I
It's
have heard
civil.
of this. Yeah, I've not played
It
it.
has kind of themes based on niche and things like that. It's kind of similar to Nier Automata, which is also one of my favorite games.
Did you attend a Gamergate meetup?
No, because I live in Spain, and in Spain there weren't people enough to do that. Although I think there was one in Barcelona because Milo went to Barcelona and made one.
Do you want to talk about the friendships you made during Gamergate?
Mm, I don't know what I could say. I mean, I met a lot of people, but they are mostly internet people because in Spain, the friends that I have in Spain are not are unrelated to Gamergate and anything like that. So I made friends online, so to speak.
Do you have any thoughts on? I think you might have a lot of thoughts on this, but do you have any thoughts on Vivian James or other Gamergate related art projects?
Don't know who they are. Yeah, I did a lot of art for Vivian and Lillian and all of these other characters. I think that my biggest accomplishment, so to speak, because it's not a big accomplishment, is to establish as canon that Vivian and Lillian are cousins, because that came from me.
Did you are you familiar with like the Gamergate music?
Music,
Yeah,
no.
like Gamergate sings and like all the songs that people did.
I know a song, but I don't know if it's a Gamergate one, but there was a song made in 4chan, I think. What was the song? It was a very good song, but
They
I
did
know I don't
several.
remember.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
there is a.
V the musicals and stuff. That wasn't necessarily GamerGate stuff because like V did their own
Mm,
stuff. I think before GamerGate even their own music. But
yeah, yeah. I know they were talking about video games and journalists, but maybe it wasn't specifically about GamerGate.
some of it's pretty good. Now,
Mm.
normally I would go to reflections, but I want to ask because I want to make sure I'm doing an okay job. I have GamerGate people that I'm interviewing from Europe, several
Mm.
European countries, from the United States as well. I think maybe I interviewed a Canadian person. I don't know. I think probably I did interview. And I've interviewing someone from Indonesia, and I'm interviewing, um, but I don't have any Japanese GamerGate supporters in the book, and I don't have any Latin American or Australian or New Zealand, I think, or African GamerGate supporters, as in from Africa itself, the continent. Um,
Mm.
am I missing out on part of the story or a big part of the story by not interviewing someone who's part of the Latin American GamerGate or the Japanese GamerGate?
I don't think that in Japan they knew a lot or anything about
Well,
GamerGate, but
they
in Latin America there was a lot of people from GamerGate.
there were a lot of people, but I can't find these people because I don't speak Spanish. Um, but they're
Try Samantha Luna.
yeah. Send me her contact info, her Twitter or something. I'll reach out.
Let's see. Let's see if I have.
But there might not have been a huge number of Japanese GamerGate people in the beginning. But once Operation Torrential Downpour launched, there were a lot. Like I've reached out to Voken. Do you remember him?
Who?
Voken, Voqn. He was a Japanese GamerGate supporter who was heavily involved with Torrential Downpour. But he didn't get back to me. So,
I don't remember much. I'm trying to find her.
but he mostly posts stuff in Japanese. So maybe he doesn't speak English very well. So maybe that's why he didn't get back.
I'm trying to find the handle of this girl, but I don't know if the name is Samantha with Samantha Luna. But what was the? There are a lot of Samantha Lunas.
Yeah, I've asked my uncle in real life. I'm like, well, look, I don't have any of the Latin American Gamergate people. Am I doing a bad job if I publish the book without having any of them? And he says that it doesn't really matter as much where the people are geographically located. What matters more is like the whether or not you've gotten like a representative sample or a good sample of the various different people with different ideas and things that they
Well,
did.
I can. I know I have followers that are from Latin America and they support Gamergate. I could ask if they want to contact you or something.
Yeah, Samantha or someone else. I'm not looking to add too many people to the book, so like I might just interview like one person from Latin America, because I've already gotten like so many, and I don't want to add new people unless I absolutely have to. I recognize
Yeah, you
there's a
have
legitimate reason to do so, a
a lot
journalistic
of
reason to do
people.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd love to. I'd be interested at least in hearing them out. For sure. Have them reach out if you don't mind, or just send me Samantha's info, or we can set something up later.
Yeah, well, I will ask if someone wants to give their version because I can't find the Twitter handle of this girl. I know she was a Gamergate, and she still is because I see her pop up sometime in my feed that she was from Latin America and she supported Gamergate.
Well, if I interview someone from the Spanish portion of GamerGate in Latin America, should I also reach out to someone in Brazil too? Because weren't there Brazilian GamerGate people as well?
There were I don't know which parts of Latin America were more Gamergate or not. I know
Yeah.
that there are a lot of Spanish speaking people in Gamergate.
But there were people from like every country in the world almost who were talking about GamerGate and who supported GamerGate to some extent or another. Some communities
Mm.
larger than others, but like I can't interview someone like if there's like 500 people who each speak like a small language. Like, am I going to have to interview somebody who speaks Frisian and like understand the Frisian Gamergate and all five people in that, or
Mm.
or the Swahili Gamergate and all four of them, or like I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily required to do a good journalistic job to cover Gamergate. I think if I think I've done a pretty good job as it is, but I think the work might be enhanced if I do interview somebody from Latin America.
Mm. Yeah, the book is getting big.
Yeah, almost too big. Anyway, do you want to?
You're gonna have to summarize parts. Like you shouldn't do like a literal translation. There's a lot of yeah,
Well,
because
yeah,
things like that should be out.
it's basically the full interviews, but I'm making it more readable. So like I'm
Mm,
rewording things a little bit here and there, as long as the full context is still maintained, taking out the ums, and I'm also fact checking specific claims that people make with editor's notes or adding additional context. Like if a statement was made by myself or by one of the interviewees, and like it's true, but like there's missing context, I'll add the missing context. I've got a list of editor's notes, but
mm.
everything else is pretty much the full interview. Unless like it's a meta thing where we're getting off topic or something on purpose.
Yeah, it's going to be super long.
Yeah. I'm
I
about a
don't
third of
know
the way
if
through editing the first one right now. The
I
first
don't know how
interview.
much in book format will be readable or to read all of it. Like all of these interviews in read format. I don't know how it's gonna work. We
Yeah.
will see.
Well, speaking of the interview, what was your favorite moment during Gamergate?
Probably the sad puppies part because the even to this day, like the only reason I have in my Twitter feed the in my bio the Who Award thing is because it pisses the woke people in a way that is incredible. Like I don't care as it. I mean, I obviously wasn't a finalist in the Hugo Awards because I earned it. It was because of the sad puppies. But it pisses them off a lot, so I have it there to piss them off.
Well, okay, that's totally cool, and I'm not like diminishing that. But do you have? I think most people would consider the Sad Puppies movement to be separate from Gamergate. Do you have any specific Gamergate favorite moments, or do you just want to keep it at that?
Mm, Gamergate specific moment. Mm, I don't know. I will have to think about it. Well, there were
Okay.
a lot of funny memes, like it ends tonight and things like that.
Oh my gosh! Oh yeah, Arthur Chu. Yeah.
There were a lot of fun moments, even if there was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of fun too. Just for the fun factor, it was kind of worth it.
Yeah, it was a really fun time. If you could have changed one thing about Gamergate, what would it be?
Mm. This one may be, I don't know if controversial or a little different to what other people have told you, but I think one of the factors that made like because I think that eventually in the end Gamergate kind of like I usually say that we won the battle in which we made people aware of what the media did and all of that. But then when the war got a little bigger and got to the mainstream, it was kind of lost. And I think that one of the main reasons is that like the woke side of the social justice side made clear that the money was on their side. And that's what they made the companies pick up their side because they wanted that money. And I know that in Gamergate is kind of anathema to say this because there was a big anti-grifter movement. Like anyone who resembles to be making money out of Gamergate was instantly attacked. And I have suffered that myself. I have people, because I have a Patreon when I do hentai stuff, I have people telling me, oh, you are grifting. And it's like, I'm not doing anything. Gamergate in my Patreon is just porn, but people say it anyways. But I think that there was such a huge push for people to go against anyone who made any kind of monetary benefit of things related to Gamergate or the cultural war that we were the side with no money and the other side was the one that was generating a lot of money, and that's what in the end made woke things seem too attractive for developers to make woke games and movies to make woke movies and all of that. So I think that maybe a thing that I will change is that people were a little more open on this side to supporting people who were doing things. And I'm not saying this because I wanted them to support me or anything, but the other people, for example, I saw people who made videos, and the way that they did videos was they did documentaries or informative videos in which they did research for a lot of time, spent a lot of time, and they did very well made videos with a lot of information that were very useful and debunked a lot of things. And that takes a lot of time. And if you want people to dedicate most of their time to do that, they need to have an income because they are not going to do that when they come home from working 8, 10 hours. So they need some kind of support. And I think that we can see that today in the fact that most people who did videos like that at the time, now they do just Twitch stream, because Twitch stream is like the easy thing to do. You don't require any time. You just put the camera and you get money. And I think we have lost that kind of research video, so to speak, because it doesn't generate money.
Yeah, I'm not monetized yet on YouTube or anything, but I do know we have a lot of people watching this video and watching it live and watching it after the fact. I do appreciate liking and commenting if you want to like the video. And please, I like comments a lot too. I try to read them. Um, and subscribe if you haven't already. I do a lot of GamerGate book interviews. I've done a lot. I'm not doing a whole lot more. Maybe like I don't know exactly how many more. Maybe like 8 or 10 or something more. Maybe a little bit less. Um, but yeah, thank you for watching, everybody, and I hope you continue to enjoy the project and hopefully buy the book when it comes out. All right, Kukuruyo, what would you personally have done differently during Gamergate?
I don't know if it would have been better or worse, but I would have liked to have the perspective that I have now, that a lot of the people I argue with I tried to convince them, but it was not possible to convince them because they weren't saying those things because they believe of them. They just were virtue signaling, and I lost a lot of time arguing with people whom would have been impossible to convince. So if I had the perspective of things that I have today, I will know better with whom I have to argue because there was a chance to convince them, and with whom I was just losing my time and just go another uh, different thing. Other than that, the only thing I will change, I don't know how much difficult will be this to explain because it's kind of an art thing. But basically, there's a thing. It's kind of complex to explain. I did an entire article to explain what I'm going to summarize in a minute. But basically, there is a way that woke artists have to make comics and memes that is bad, very, very bad. That they don't have basically any joke. It's just their rival is screaming. I usually call this the I am silly, because it's like the you draw the protagonist character like a very calm person and rational, and the other guy, like, I don't know, the Trump supporter or whatever, is like super angry and silly and screaming. And that's kind of the way that woke people does comics and memes. And I did that for like 2 or 3 comics. The 2 or 3 first comics that I did about Gamergate were like that. And then I saw that I didn't like to do that because it's kind of, you're not really saying anything, and I changed. So I would like to change those first comics that I did that were that and do it in a different way.
Let's say it's 10 years from now, and an online movement is looking to Gamergate for guidance for their movement. What advice do you have for them?
Hmm. What advice do I have? So like a movement that is demonized as well, so to speak.
Well, not necessarily, but like I guess if somebody wants to take inspiration or learn a lesson from Gamergate and they want to apply that to their online movement that they're creating or that they're participating in, it could be a few different things. It doesn't have to be one specific thing. but what do you think are some good lessons that they could take away?
I don't know if I could bring something from GamerGate to help, because I think most of the things against GamerGate, most of the people against GamerGate were going to do it anyways, regardless of what we said. So it's kind of hard to say what us of people in the future could have made. The only thing that I think I could say is what I usually tell to people who are being cancelled and all that, is this: don't concede. Like, conceding to the mob is like the worst thing you can do. So if you are part of a movement and the other side is trying to force you into doing whatever, just say no. Just don't give your arm, because they're going to grab all of it.
Do you see? Oh, sorry. What have you personally learned from GamerGate?
Personally learn from GamerGate. Probably to read people on the internet better than I did, because I remember that at the time, when GamerGate started, I have always kind of been the kind of person that liked to debate and have debates with people, and I still do it today in person with people in real life. But in the internet, it's basically impossible because people just jump instantly to some kind of fallacies, traumas, and things like that, and arguing in bad faith, and you just can't. So I guess that kind of what I learned is when to not lose my time with stuff that goes nowhere.
Do you see parallels between GamerGate and the way society currently discusses issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same as in Gamergate, but expanded. Like, if you criticize X thing, you are racist or sexist or whatever, and it's how it works. Although it's starting to crack a little in that no more people don't care to be called sexist for not supporting the last MCU movie or something.
What do you think of the decentralized and leaderless nature of GamerGate?
Mm, I don't know, because that's the kind of thing that I cannot really say if what is best or not. Like, if it's best that we didn't have a leader, or it's best that we did have a leader. It's kind of a thing that, unless it happened, we can't know if it works best or not. I can say that for other movements, having a leader, I think, has worked. I don't know if to say it has worked badly or not for them. Like, for example, Black Lives Matter has been very successful having leaders, but
Well,
at the
they
same time, for
go ahead. Sorry, I don't cut you off.
no, I was gonna say that for me, it was having leaders what turned me away from them, because at the beginning I was kind of sympathetic in regards that there were people saying, "Oh, Black Lives Matter are doing this thing, or are saying this thing," and I was like, "Okay, this is like similar to Gamergate, that they pick a few people who are not representative, and those people are saying those things." But then they designated leaders, and those leaders started to say, "Okay, this is a pamphlet of what our movement wants," and a lot of people clicking on like that they support that, and it's like, okay, so this is what you support, and this is stupid.
Yeah, the Black Lives Matter case is an interesting one because like they started out with no leaders, just like GamerGate did. Um, and like if you ask people who supported the movement, some of them will even say that the people who call themselves leaders, um, that they that they aren't leaders, that they never voted for these people, that they don't represent the real movement, that the real movement are the people on Twitter and the people on the ground. Not and of course, most of the leaders that the Black Lives Matter people ended up promoting ended up being scam artists. And they ended up
Mm.
scamming them out of like millions of dollars. So I don't know
It
about
was
most,
kind
but
of
like a
obvious.
large number of them did. So like the leader thing probably hurt them. Plus, when they did make public statements, these so-called leaders did, because I supported BLM, I guess, kind of, during the George Floyd stuff. And I interviewed people during GamerGate actually, because obviously GamerGate and Black Lives Matter were happening at the same time. So I was interviewing them because I'm like, well, hey, look, here's another online leaderless movement. Let's explore their story. So I interviewed Joe Schmuck, I think his name was. He was a supporter of Black Lives Matter, and I interviewed someone who criticized the movement as well, um, back in the day. And I might have interviewed like a third person as well who was pro BLM. I don't know, but it seems like the leader thing really fucked them over because one, the leaders were scam artists, and two, they also said a bunch of crazy unhinged shit like we need to like overthrow capitalism and all this stuff, and like
Yeah.
most of the people who were on the ground at the protests like weren't on board with that stuff, I don't think.
The thing is that I cannot say for sure if it worked well for them or not, because on one side is just having leaders show that all of that stuff, but on the other side, it was a very successful movement. So it worked or not, I don't know. I don't know which parts of it were the ones that helped or were against it. And I agree that with the part that they didn't choose the leaders, so it was more like there were figures that became the leaders because they have a lot of support. But for me, the relevant part is that they had all that support. Because in GamerGate, for example, if there was, let's say, for example, Ethan Ralph goes and say, okay, I am the spokesperson for GamerGate. Like most people on GamerGate will say, no, dude. Like no one will click like on his tweets, you know. But with the BLM leaders, it was like every time they tweeted something, they had like 1 million likes.
Yeah, and I mean, but I don't know if BLM was successful, right? Like because like they got like a few reforms maybe at like the local and state levels, um, and they started a conversation nationwide about policing. But I think the fact that their leaders were all crazy people, I think that, or not all of them maybe, but like probably almost all of them, yeah. Like all the people who claimed that they were leaders, like set themselves up with no election or anything, like those people were all crazy people who had crazy far left ideas like we need to like abolish all policing and stuff like that. I think that hurt them. I think if they had like more a measured response and were like, hey, look, we're gonna implement these are the reforms that we want, and we're going to try and get them through like pressuring lawmakers, and we're going to try and get them through like peaceful protests, and we're going to try and get them through like working with the police to come up with solutions that are better for everybody. I think if they went that route instead, I think they would have been more successful. But I don't know. Could be
The,
wrong. It's a,
the thing is that they were successful in that, well, they got first all of the media behind, and they made a lot of money. No, the issue is that the money went to scammers. But let's say that those scammers weren't scammers, that they were like legit people who will use that money for the black community, then they would have been an incredible success.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If yeah, you're perhaps right there, and maybe some better stuff would have come out of it. But anyway, getting back to GG, would you want to do a GamerGate reunion, sort of a big meetup once every 10 years or something like that?
But kind of hard for me. I mean,
Now let's want to fly
living
to
in another
America,
country.
but like we could do like one in America and one in Europe and like one in Latin America and one in Asia and one in Africa or something, right? We could do like 5 different ones each every 10 years. That way it's
I
easy
mean,
for
I
people to
guess
travel.
if there was one close enough, I could go. But I mean, distance are very big, anyways. I mean, even if you do one in Europe, it's like Germany is still very far.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Even America, like if you do one on like the East Coast, like most people probably won't be able to go to it. Maybe if you did it in like the middle of the country, that wouldn't be too bad. Like if you did it in like Missouri or Kansas or something. But have you ever
I
thought
mean,
about? Go ahead.
no, I mean, for you who live in areas that really could get people, I guess it's cool. Yes,
Have you ever thought about writing a book or other project relating to Gamergate?
reading a book.
Writing a book, writing your own book about Gamergate or
No,
anything like that.
I did an article to explain Gamergate to Spanish people, and it's basically the article that any pro Gamergate people link when they want to talk about Gamergate, because no other. It's like the only one that there is. Not much choices. But and then I do the comics. I mean, I think that's enough.
Someone in the chat asks, "What about doing the meetup in Washington D.C. or the reunion?" I think that that's still too close to the East Coast, but I'm also biased because I live in the Midwest. So, but if you guys want to do it there, like we can have that conversation. Um, for you personally, what would GamerGate being successful look like?
Mm, I think mm, it will be more about making to say it like if we have had enough influence amongst gamers and developers that they will have said we are not going to concede to all of the like Anita Sarkeesian push to make video games less sexy and less violent and whatever. That would have been a success on itself because if that I think that the reason that game journalists write those articles calling everyone sexist is because those ideas that the intersectional feminists that the Sarkeesian push is what is making them write those things. So I think that if there is not if there wasn't so much of a moral benefit to making those comments, the game journalists wouldn't be making those kind of articles and comments, and they would probably be more prone to have a code of conduct and not do the kind of stuff that they do now.
With that as your metric, was GamerGate successful in your eyes?
I mentioned it earlier. I think that we won the battle in which at first it was like a niche discussion, and the discussion ended up going into the mainstream. Like all of the 2016 era was the meme wars and all of this. But then after that, when the conversation was like more in the mainstream, like the woke part kinda got the upper hand.
Kukuruyo, GamerGate, GamerGate, GamerGate. If you could do it all over again, would you?
Probably. Why not?
Yeah, me too. What do you think of this interview project?
I mean, it's cool. The only issue that I see is what I mentioned, that I don't know how much in reading format is going to be palatable to, because it's a lot of interviews, very long, and I don't know, a lot of rambling in most of the interviews I have seen as well. So not that I am any different. So I don't know if in book format, like maybe a person who knows about Gamergate and want to look at all of the perspective, but if you show it to someone who is like, okay, what is Gamergate? And you say, okay, you have this 1,000 pages book. I don't know if they're gonna read that.
Yeah. Well, I thought about, well, when it comes to people rambling and stuff, I make people's sentences more concise than they do over voice.
Mm,
Like that's one change I'm totally fine making, as long as I maintain the context in which the statement was made and the meaning of the statement. Um, and I've also thought about, I don't know if I'll do this or not, but I probably should. I thought about doing like a timeline too in the beginning, where it'll show a timeline of the events, and maybe like a glossary, or what do they call them? Where I think a
mm,
glossary, right? Where it's got like a list of the definitions of various things. Um, so I'll maybe do that too. I don't know, maybe. And then I'm also, one thing I've started doing already with editing the first interview and transcribing that is I've started to uh, add like sections. Though they're not really sections yet because I don't know how to do that in Google Docs. So
mm.
they're, what they really are in reality is like comments that I put on there, and I'm going to turn that into a section ideally, where it'll be like,
Yeah,
so that way I can have like the table of contents. It'll be like, here's the Oron Dark Lord interview, and then I'll hear, if you turn to this page if you want to hear about X, or that page if you want to hear about Y, and have it be like segmented for each interview. That way people can swiftly find the information they're looking for. Like, what does Oron Dark Lord say about Zack Attack? Or I probably won't be one really, but like, what does Oron Darklord think about artistic freedom? And then you can go to the section on artistic freedom in his interview through the table of contents. I think that that could be an interesting way to do it.
mm. I think that a summary will be necessary. I don't know how much of a summary will be because explaining what the GamerGate is complex. Like in the article that I did for Spain, it's a very, very long article. And I don't start to speak about GamerGate until the mid part of the article. Like all of the previous part is explaining tons of things related to games journalists that has happened and explaining Jack Thompson, so they have like a preview of Anita Sarkeesian and then explaining Anita Sarkeesian. And when there's like a lot of things explained, then I can say, okay, and no GamerGate.
All right, we're nearing the end here. Kukuruyo, some people reading this might hold a negative view of Gamergate. Do you have anything you want to say to these people?
Okay. Well, assuming again that they are the honest people that really uh, think bad things without being like virtual signaling and such, I will say, kind of following on what I mentioned earlier, that the vast majority of people really agree that games journalism was bad, and they may even agree that some injection of politics is too heavy-handed. And what the point of contention is usually always like the harassment stuff. So really, the way to convince a person who is truly willing to talk is to show kind of data and proof that the harassment wasn't really like a thing that, yes, some people did, but the movement isn't about that at all. And the moment that the conversation switch from the harassment part, which is what they always try to focus the conversation, the moment that you take the conversation away from harassment, there really isn't much disagreement.
Awesome. Well, hey, anything else you want to talk about?
Mm, I don't think so.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for telling your Gamergate story. I think it was an important perspective to include in the book, and appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do like, comment. Supposedly, this helps out in the algorithm and gets more people to see it. Um, so yeah, thank you so much. We're probably gonna raid somebody, but I'm not sure if anybody's streaming it on a Saturday afternoon right now. So let's see.
End of the year.
Neve is supposedly streaming later on. So we'll just raid her and you can. But it was supposed to start an hour and a half ago. So like maybe she's not going to be streaming at all, or it's heavily delayed. In that case, I guess we'll raid her in case she is starting soon. But if not, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. If Neve's going live, say hi to her. Take care, guys.